We should be going in a minute. Good evening or good afternoon, everybody. Merry Christmas to you. I hope you're all well. I wasn't. We weren't going to stream for a few weeks because we usually do this on a Sunday, and I'm working for the next couple. So, but I thought, you know what? It's in England at the minute, just like everywhere else. I'm pretty sure. Well, I don't know exactly about most of the people in the States, but we're kind of in lockdown in the north of England. So everywhere's shut. Nobody goes to the bars or the cinemas or shopping or do shit, basically. So, I thought I would have a discussion about Lorne Armstrong. There's not many people in this country that have just thought about... In fact, I'm the only one in this country, which is kind of makes me feel proud, actually. I'm like the only one that's put together some YouTube concoction to talk about Lorne. So, rather than continue with the chat log, I thought we would have a bit of a spontaneous free-for-all. I thought of a word that describes that then, but anyway, just to introduce everybody, my usual guests are here. So Tiffany Lockhart is here. Couldn't keep her away, unfortunately. It is Christmas.
Could not keep me away. Yeah, I just show up.
Yeah, you're not even on my Skype. It's like, what? How did this? What? Who is this person? Oh, right, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mr. Shins Koala is also back. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Hi, everybody.
You've been already very active this morning. So you're a bit knackered, aren't you, my friend? So we'll give you a bit of a pass to start waffling incoherently, which is what I usually do. And Amanda James, who I believe it's been. How long have you been doing this with us now, Amanda? For about 2 or 3 months, maybe.
I don't know.
It's been longer than that.
Yeah, longer than that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I really don't know though. I couldn't even hazard a guess. I meant to look
earlier
back
in the
and figure
year.
it out.
Yeah, I'll have a look. Actually, I'll dig back. So, what I thought we could talk about, and we've actually been, just Sadie and Roscoe and making a bit of a noise in the background.
Goofy baby wants a kiss.
So usually, what we do, guys, and you've probably noticed this already when you're listening to our usual streams, is we go over the chat log. And we do about 3 lines, but talk about for about an hour and a half or something like that. And we just go off on a tangent about various things. And it's something that we've mentioned briefly in streams before. And we've even spoke about in private. Is what the fuck are we all doing? Obsessing over this guy. Even, I know we've touched upon it. It gets discussed. I've done videos about it on my own. About, like, what is it about this particular guy and the overall Lorne saga that is so intriguing to us? Kennedy's here. Hello, Kennedy. And
hey, hope you and your baby.
Ryan Bonds, hi, dude. And Tiffany. Oh, yeah, right, yeah. So yeah, we were like, what is it about this guy? It's like. Because, like, when I was talking to Adam a while ago, he said, "Oh, I'm getting a bit bored of the Lorne thing now," and he delves in and out of it. He doesn't really have the kind of interest that I do. And then I had to start questioning myself. But luckily, the people that are with me now have generally the same level of interest as me. So it's something that you said last week, a couple of weeks ago, Amanda, when you said that you showed the Lorne footage to your brother. Do you remember when you said that?
Yeah.
And you said that, like, he didn't understand what the crack was, but I was thinking about that. He doesn't have any context, does he? So if you're just watching that footage, you don't know who Lorne is, but you would find it so much more amusing because of everything that we know about him, because we know how much of a pathetic character he is. Do you understand what I mean?
Of course, but we all started with the same thing. We all started just by watching the footage, and that was enough to draw most of us in to want to know more and to be interested So I thought that watching the sting footage would be a good starting point, but he just didn't see the humor of some scumbag getting caught.
Yeah, that we should make a distinction between the footage, the one that NBC showed and the uncut stuff, because that wasn't until later I saw the uncut stuff. So if you're talking about, what initially brought us here, and the thesis in your description seems to be saying what makes him different from the other TCAT predators, right? We saw other people on the show, but why do we zoom in on him? I mean, is that where we're going with this?
Yeah, it's not anything. It's not anything one specific facet of this thing, dude. It's everything. Let's just freestyle it. That's the fucking term I was looking for at the beginning. Freestyle it. I like that. Well done, Andrew. So, yeah, anything that comes up, dude. Because I mean, it's funny what you said, Amanda, about it was a good starting point to watch the footage. But I believe I remember you saying that when you first saw To Catch a Predator, Lorne didn't necessarily stand out for you, which is interesting.
No, he didn't. I think I mentioned the only reason I really looked deeper into him was when I found out that he was from my state. And it was just curiosity, just to see if somehow I knew anybody who knew him, or I don't know. That drew me in more. And then there's the treasure trove of material on him. I tried to give my brother a quick context and explain, but you can't. It's nothing you can really explain. I think I told him, he had a fake girlfriend and he would cry over her and the doctor, and he's like, what? Who gives a shit? Why are you what are you doing? So it's.
Well, I always turn this on. I get that response 100% of the time, but I always turn on what's entertaining you. What are you watching? What do you, King of Thrones or whatever the hell it is. It's always something that we have our phases of entertainment phases or whatever. And again, if I always say that, if this was a reality show picked up by a network, he would have 50 plus seasons. If this somehow had some mainstream appeal, or at least
that's a good point. It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So I compare whatever they're looking to what I'm doing, and it just emboldens me to say that wouldn't interest me nearly as much as a new video or a new Lorne call or something. So a new revelation more than anything else. But so I always turn it on them and say, what are you interested in? And it's easy for me to kind of pick it apart in my own mind. Well, that's not real. Those are actors. Those are, it's a nice script and everything else, but it's not the same thing. So.
We're so invested in Lorne's life by this point that it's hard for me to imagine looking at it from an outsider's point of view now.
But it can be done. I mean, we all have to ask ourselves, like, what, obviously, some of us remember his show in 2007, but what is it about us? I think that may be where the answer is, perhaps, or part of the answer. What is it about us? How did we get hooked?
You mean it's in the eye of the beholder in a way? Yeah,
I guess so. But there are attributes we all have that are very similar.
I think you're right there. I think there's something that all of us have in common. I think this is why there's a bit of a community kind of thing going on. Well, that's what we're here to try and find out.
I mean, other than the same sense of humor, we obviously have a similar sense of humor.
And high cringe tolerance. And no, it's not. But that actually almost kind of lost me in the early days. But things like what's happening in our lives, I think that it just form a perfect intersection. We all have our own personal stories about it. Though.
Yeah, and I can't. It's interesting. Sorry. Yeah, I can't. Obviously, I can't divulge exactly why. But I've not spoke to you, Amanda, in as much detail as I have with Tiffany and Shin, because we've not known each other as long. But I know there's things in both Shin and Tiffany's personal life, some of which has been discussed, some of which hasn't, are the reasons why we're interested in Lorne. Some of which
it was a timing thing, I think.
No, but there's more to it about than that. There's things that, like, I know about you two guys, about why you are interested in Lorne and also TCAP, and it's something that I don't think there's any problem discussing it, Tiffany, because it's something that we have discussed in quite a bit of detail, is that some of your family have been affected by people like Lorne in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I don't know if that's the one contributing factor to your. I mean, actually, is that? I'm not sure if I've asked you that question directly before. Is that one of the reasons why TCAP jumps out at you, because you have a interest in these guys for whatever for the reason of, well, whatever. I mean, is that got something to do with it?
I think that it does, but not initially. When I first became interested in it, there's a lot of satisfaction that comes from seeing someone get caught red-handed. And, whether it's they have a camera set up in a store and somebody's, it catches somebody running in to grab the tip jar and run out, and then they get caught. What happens then? Because you really see people in their element, like we say, Lorne in the wild. Mm-hmm. You see these people walk in with so much confidence. There could be a little bit of fear there and apprehension, but in Lorne's case,
getting up to the steps,
he was so happy. There was not a care in the world. He thought he completed his plan from step A to step Z, didn't miss a step. Everything was covered. He wasn't going to get caught, all the way up to and including the point when he drove past the house the first time to make sure, as a way to kind of scope it out. What's going on there? Is it okay to pull in the driveway?
He was behaving like he was going on a first date rather than committing a crime. He was so happy. I mean, I know that he was being careful and cognizant of the fact that it was a crime. But when he skipped up the steps, it was like a teenage boy going on a first date.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of what it is in a way, mentally. It's kind of the equivalent, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, all of it. That was his birthday.
I think so.
What a great birthday present for himself. He's going to get laid.
Yeah,
not
all
only
the stars
that,
lined up for that one. Yeah, exactly.
But he's going to be fulfilling his fantasy that he's had for a long time.
Tiffany, you touched on something I think is very important, to me at least, the justice aspect to it. If this was if the fact that we know the ending, the fact that we know, where it ended up as we were watching this abominable crime that he was committing, we can laugh at it because of that. Mm-hmm. Even though there are some predators that were funny, but we didn't see the justice, the Mike Willises, whoever these other guys were. There was still some entertainment value, but what's important to me, probably the biggest thing is justice in this world, because everything falls from that. And to know that he not only got criminal justice, but he also got basically karma. He got all of these other extensional forms of justice,
including justice from Tiffany Lockhart.
Right. So
participation in it. No, I'm serious. Go ahead.
I agree. I totally agree, because until those revelations were pulled out of him, I thought we were spinning our wheels for a long time.
And it got me interested in listening to because up until I heard the Tiffany calls, which is what Adam played to me once, I wasn't at all interested in the catfishing. I'd said many times something we'll go into maybe in a couple of weeks. I don't necessarily agree with the motives behind it. It's an interest. It's one of the, maybe we'll talk a little bit about it later, but it was rough justice in a way. Not even rough justice. I mean, it's kind of mild considering it was like somebody was finally telling him what I fucking wanted to say to him. It's like, fucking have a bit of that, you twat. You know what I mean? It's like, finally.
Not just telling him, but getting information out of him.
Yeah, no, you're right. That nobody else was able to do.
Exactly.
And do you know what that was? It's nothing more than sincerity, because when you were talking to him, Tiffy, and I know that there was deceit inherent in the context, but there was a genuine kind of sincerity in wanting nothing more than the truth. You weren't trying to, at that moment, trying to destroy him. You weren't trying to, inflict pain on him. You was just trying to get to the truth, and that's what got lost, in my opinion, with all the catfishing. It's like, I understand people found it entertaining. It's only now that it's all coming to the surface and people are really starting to question. I mean, I don't want to get into that because we're starting to, potentially get involved in a load of drama and bringing other people into it. I might do a video on that myself later, but I don't think I'm saying anything that people don't already know. That some of the catfishing, I think, is just fucking beyond the realms of ridiculousness in many, many elements. But I understand some people like it because they see Lorne as a archetypal figure of, the poster boy for sex offenders. Here he is, an easy target. He's easy manipulated. Let's go and fuck him over. But you kind of...
I disagree. First of all, at some point in this discussion, I think I have a decent argument to show that he was more than a willing participant.
Yes, but we're running into the... I agree from a certain perspective, but we're running maybe we'll hold this back for when we do talk about the catfishing in another video, because we could talk about that because it's interesting and I'm open-minded to discuss it in detail, but we'll sort of stem back to the what found it interesting. But I think we're on the subject of Tiffany speaking to him, and it was just you were just looking for the truth, weren't you, at that point, Tiffany? Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, there became an opportunity to ask him some very pointed questions, and that's all that it was really just to, listen, let's go past all of the bullshit that you've been spewing all of these years and writing about in your lawsuits and the letters to your mother, crying about how you were targeted by NBC and perverted justice made money. All of that stuff is all distraction from the point that you committed this crime because you wanted to. It was, his ability to justify his actions and place the justification. Well, here's the reason. My brothers screwed me over with helping them out, and they never returned the favor. It was difficult growing up in a household with a bunch of kids, and then a ton of other reasons that came along behind that. And all it does is distract from the point that he wanted to do it. And that's all that we wanted to get to was, here's the opportunity. He's going to keep talking. Because a lot of times before then, asking him a certain question or bringing up a topic, he will immediately shut down. And you're not going to get anything. He's either going to hang up, he's going to start to cry, he's like, nope, I'm not talking about that, and everything. But there came a point where he was willing to go forward. And that's
what you were doing, though. That, like you said, the opportunity presented itself because you're asking him to explain what he wrote.
Right.
You created out of whole cloth or fish around or go on a fishing expedition for something that you had no clue about. This is right here, and it was perfect. You took it.
And, obviously we know that the end result of those conversations was that he immediately goes back to where he started. And yeah, I knew I weren't wanting to or something like that.
That's always his last bastion. That is, nobody can tell me what's in my head.
Absolutely.
You guys are all stupid because you don't know what's going on. Well, you know what? The available evidence and everything else. That's all we need. Right. And that's what you don't understand. When we have a shared reality, we can make those assumptions about you.
Yeah.
And him, and he always goes back to he gets back into a corner. Well, you don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah,
it's very
absolutely
frustrating.
Yeah, and so then the question is, or the statement is, tell me what you were thinking then. Well, what is it? Like, let's figure this out, because
not reflected in what you wrote.
And it's such bullshit. What he was thinking is such bullshit. It was, I didn't want to go, but I wanted to make sure she was okay because she was 13 and home alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
There was
cut
thunder
the
in the
shit.
distance.
Which is a common predator excuse.
Yeah.
How ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he has
no,
very
absolutely.
Like, Andrew, you said that. Well, I think a lot of people here and interested in TCAP will have the experience of either themselves or someone they know and care about being affected by someone like Lorne. It's really common. It's far too common, and it's natural that people who have been affected by that will be interested in seeing these guys caught red-handed and brought to justice.
How good must that feel? How good must that feel?
Well, that's
vicarious justice.
Yeah, it could be a form of therapy in a way.
I think it is.
Vicarious justice is the perfect phrase, because a lot of people who are hurt by someone like Lorne, I mean, sometimes it's a stranger hiding in an alleyway waiting to grab children and hurt them, but far more often it's somebody in your house. It's your family or neighbor or friend or coach, priest, teacher, someone that's close and trusted and even loved. So because of that, people sometimes they go their whole lives without saying a single word. They don't tell anybody. Or even worse, they do tell somebody and the abuser is protected rather than the child. So to listen and to hear you, Tiffany, say all this stuff to Lorne, and a lot of these abusers never have to face any form of justice. They never have to hear anybody tell them what they are or what they did. So when you do it and everybody gets to listen, it's you can almost imagine that is the person that hurt you or whoever it is that you love getting this justice, and it's like you said, it's vicarious justice.
Yeah. There are so many people in the community that have reached out to me and have told their stories too, and I can only imagine, just based on that's those people are attracted to this, obviously, for vicarious justice reasons and everything else. But what particularly makes my heart soar is when they come out of their shell and talk and chat and joke and laugh. And I can only imagine that must feel so good. It makes me feel good to see that. So
yeah, no, I understand, and I've always, I can't go into. There's personal information that I don't divulge, not about like anything that's happened to me. I've never been a victim or know anybody that's very in my family that's been a victim, but professionally, I can't divulge too much, not for any other reason that I have to maintain some kind of security and things like that. But I see people affected and work within the medical field and whatnot, so I do understand the ramifications of it. And the reason I bring that up, it's not for any ego reason. It's just to give my weight a little bit more gravity, because if someone is talking on a YouTube channel, it's like, well, what the fuck do you know? But all I can say is to anybody that is listening, I do know what I'm talking about. That's all I can say, really.
Yeah, I can vouch. So, folks, on a daily basis, I might add.
So, basically, I suppose the reason I wanted to bring that up is what you were saying, Amanda and Tiffany, about giving victims this kind of not vindication, but this kind of opportunity. I am, almost sounds too virtuous to say, but I can't think of any other word to say it, is that victims are the number one concern in all of this. Everything that is done with these offenders and the way we deal with them should all be based around the needs and protecting the innocent people. That's primary. I don't think, despite the disagreements that happen in the community, nobody can disagree with that. But I also do believe that sometimes what could be seen as being therapeutic can end up being dangerous. So, for instance, if one sees Lorne as a mental punching bag, that can ultimately, in some cases, if not done with the greatest of care, lead to actually further harm internally. Because if someone has got a lot of negative emotions in them and is injured because a family member or themselves have gone through some kind of abuse, unless that is dealt with professionally in a very controlled way, it can become very destructive. So if you throw all of your hatred and anger towards maybe one individual and you focus on them entirely, that will create dysfunction and harm in your own life, because anger and hatred towards any particular person can be very dangerous. And I'm not saying that you have to forgive these people, because in some cases that's almost impossible. You know what I mean? It's like with the things that some of these people have done, you're never just gonna love them, are you? But I think there is peace that can be found, and that's what I always try and do. Like when I'm doing the videos and talk about Lorne and whatnot, I always try. I think that's why there was some, my videos are a little bit different than some of the others. Is I just try and approach it from a little bit of a different way and try and look at these guys as human beings. You see, the human psyche, we're all part of the same human mind in a way, and what one person is susceptible to, we've all got the potential to go down that road. I don't mean we're all going to turn into fucking child sex predators, but the human mind is the same in everybody. So we're all part of the same organism. I'm getting very philosophical again now, but that's the way I always try and look upon it, because I think that is helpful to some people.
Well, Lorne's a perfect cautionary tale, and like you said, not necessarily, a lesson to not molest children. I should hope we all know that. But in all the other aspects, in his behavior in general, he has no impulse control, no willpower, no shame. He'll display every unattractive or unflattering behavior shamelessly. He's very needy, desperate. And we all have a little bit of that in us. Nobody wants to be rejected. Nobody wants to be abandoned. Nobody wants to feel unloved or unattractive or any of that. And so it's understandable. It's the way Lorne behaves to all of it. His screaming and raging and crying and bargaining. He's just a good example of all the bad things.
Yeah,
all the negative things.
Yeah,
I don't
think that people are necessarily, or who are in this for cathartic reasons like that, are necessarily hating on Lorne necessarily. Although he is he's a central figure.
I don't think it's the majority of people, Shim, but I do think it's
no. No, what I'm saying, I think it's what he personifies. It's what he stands for. It's his environment and everything else that we get to kind of look at. And obviously, I can't say that I would ever want to do harm to him as much as I should want to.
That's what happened. I mean, I run the risk of getting into the old ethics debate, which we're going to touch upon again in a couple of weeks. Is when the Ramona thing was carrying on and they were taking, let's figure out what we're going to do with this guy. That's when it did become vindictive, and that's when, which, like I said, we're running in the realms of maybe talking about that, but it got to the point then for me where it hadn't, it seemed that the objective was, let's destroy this guy, and people were, and even I found myself at one point, I found that prospect appealing. And I had I don't know whether it's sense or even naivety, I don't know, I'm not making any judgments. I, at that point, was able to step back and take stock of what was going on and go, hang on a fucking minute. Where's this going here? Whereas some people didn't even, they were like, yeah, let's fucking do this to him, let's make him, it was like nobody stopped to care what was going to happen to him. At that point, so there was that element. There was many people, and even to this day, there are a minority of people. Like I said, we'll talk about it in more detail another time, but when you have somebody there who will do anything, that you can do anything to this guy, and he's very difficult. It's very difficult to not want to do those things because he displays, as you said, Amanda, you can't think of any positive aspects of this guy. Everything that he tried to do, he doesn't take responsibility for anything. He fucks over everybody that he knows. It's like, that's why I find the overall moralities of it all incredibly interesting. I think it spawns some very, very interesting topics.
Well, I don't mean to. I want to kind of respond to that, but I don't want to talk about the upcoming stream that we want to talk about because it kind of leaks into that.
Yeah, it's my fault. I've gone into it a bit too much.
Well, no, yeah, that's right. Actually, I'm glad you're taking responsibility for this. But if I had the inkling, okay, that this was just straight up bullying, which is, I totally abhor that. That kind of thing. Which I think there was to a certain extent. That's what it seems to be. I don't think I would have been interested in this. I mean, there's something about his participatory actions, his welcoming of this, that, starting out with his videos, there's lawsuits and everything else that invited.
Oh, of course. You could find very good reasons. You could literally, we could all sit here, all of us, and say, well, he invites it. He asks for it. You could find probably more reasons for why it's not bullying than it is. But like I said, we're running the risk of going into what, because I think it's a really interesting subject, because it's like, how do we treat these people? Do they lose their ability, or not their ability? Do they lose their right to be treated like human beings, even though they've served the time? Do they not deserve the rights and privileges that other people do?
Yeah, well, I think that one of the things that the community shares is their hatred for people who are bullied, people who that kind of thing would make a lot of people uncomfortable, and I think they see the same thing. This isn't quite bullying, This is.
I disagree completely. I wholeheartedly disagree with you.
I mean, if you we can get into this now if you want, but I think there's plenty of evidence to show that he needs this in his life, and he wants this in his life, and he is out of his mind when it's not in his life. One of the big things that he has a problem with is people not answering the phone when he calls. That probably enrages him, probably the second most behind other guys. And the other thing is, when he does get backed into a corner, he's always trying to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to blow the whole lid off this thing. You guys are all into this. And then he has to be convinced that's not happening. He wouldn't say that if he didn't believe it and knew it. That's his threat to us. I won't participate in this anymore. So I'm convinced, I'm 95% convinced that this is not bullying. This is an interaction that he is well aware of as to the feelings about the people behind it, the community behind it. He knows that, and in his most imperfect world, this would end. That's the way I took it. That's the way I interpret it, based on what he was doing.
I do agree with what you're saying to a certain point. However, what I'll say is, and we'll have to wrap it up, not to try and sort of have the last word and say, "Oh, in your face, Shin, I'm going to cut you off." We'll freestyle it in a couple of weeks when we can all do a proper job of it. But what I will say is that Lorne doesn't have the ability to see things like we do. I do believe it's a lack of ability. There's no other explanation for his bizarre fucking tendencies and his extreme actions. Some of it, you see, this is why I find it interesting, really, because some of it is kind of like he asks for it and he makes the decisions to be stupid. But how much of it is his own free will, and how much of it is his genetics, his mental upbringing? You know, I understand what you're saying, dude, because it is like a participation. He knows what's going on, kind of, but he kind of doesn't at the same time. He allows his.
Excuse me. He's got an environment full of everyone he knows telling him what's going on.
But he's a desperately lonely person, Shin, and when someone is desperately lonely, you believe what you want to believe. If he wasn't a sex offender, right, there is no question that people would say it's 100% bullying, it shouldn't be done, because everything is done under the mask of deception.
That's the difference.
There's more than that.
Of course, and that's the question, Amanda, that I wanted to, we'll go over. Because, like I said, I'm not trying to cut you off or anything. It's just that this stream will run the risk of going into that, and I think it's worthy of its own program. Is that the main question is, does a sex offender, or Lorne specifically, deserve? Has he served his time? Does anything go after that? After what he tried to do, that's the main question.
You don't want
I won't answer it now, but
you don't want to do this now, do you?
I know, I do want to do it now because it's really interesting, and I find.
Well, I think your original question about what brought us here, what makes him different from the other people, I think is pretty worthy of talking about. I would like to discuss that, and again, I don't want to be a killjoy to anybody, but I'd like to give it a little more thought too. But if you want to go into it, fine, let's do it.
No, we'll do it. I don't know. I'm kind of no. I think it's worthy of its own stream, really. I
thought about it.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to talk about why we're so interested in Lorne,
right?
More so than the other predators, without going into all that. Because that, for me, that's the reason why I'm interested in Lorne. We have all this material on him. If we had dozens or hundreds of hours of Justin McFetridge being catfished, then maybe we'd be talking about him right now.
No, we wouldn't. That's another element of all this, because there's something in Lorne's character and his personality which makes him more entertaining to listen to. It's like something you said to me once, Tiffany. If we could have a 24-hour camera on him to watch what crazy antics he was up to, we'd watch it all the time.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
As long as when he's naked, it's pixelated or his wiener.
Having a laugh, that'd be the best bit.
We'll pixelate it.
Well, maybe for you, I can understand that, but yeah, Lorne as a character is so interesting, and I've absolutely asked myself that question many times. What is it about this man that makes him interesting? And, there's some reasons, obviously, like the things that he says are funny. The way that he says them are funny. He's like a walking soundboard, everything.
That's a great way of putting it.
Storyboard, too. Storyboard, too.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to get somebody, I don't know, people have brought up the topics before of like, there's all these predators on the show. Why is Lorne getting the phone calls? Why aren't the others getting the phone calls? We want to hear from them too. And it's like, you're not going to get somebody like Lorne, speaking to him, because I feel like the other people would just be uninteresting for the most part. There's going to be a couple perhaps that you would be curious about. But I think with Lorne, everything that he does, you can watch his cooking show and have it be on mute and still have it be entertaining just by watching what's going on and how he's
Is that
moving.
Just for us though? Is that because I feel like other people would be like, what's the big deal?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, there's people who would be interested in hearing Anthony Palumbo versus Lorne. There's people who are going to be interested in quite a few, like John Pierre Wary or,
Yeah,
whomever.
but not for very long, though. I don't think
that
we'll
is
have
true.
the legs
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
things are constantly in flux with him.
Yeah.
And situations are caused by him. Let's just call it that. You know?
And truthfully, I wouldn't be as interested in Lorne if all of the other content prior to even hearing any Ramona calls or anything, all the base shaman stuff that was out there. So when looking up To Catch a Predator, you just walk into this, just video after video after video about Lorne. Otherwise, he if that stuff didn't exist, then he would just be another bald beaver hunter. Like, you just have his footage, very little about him. He might be memorable because of things like,
can I just
Amanda
interrupt you, Tiffany?
No.
Which I like doing.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you too, because one thing we're forgetting is his chat log is unique.
That's exactly right, Amanda. I'm glad you said that.
It is.
It's very different.
I do have to say.
But when you initially saw the show, hold on a sec. When you initially saw the show, you didn't have access to other than what they, you want to.
Which is why he didn't stand up to me on the show.
Right. It wasn't until you got into the chat log.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two things that happened in that chat log that really intrigued me. The Derek episode, no other predator was jealous of another.
Yeah.
The closest thing was, is it bigger than Stevens? Right. That was the closest thing, right. And Molly, those guys.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And that hooked me, and that's what kept me on for the ride. And again, I would not have seen that on the initial show. If you were to look at the initial show, I would argue that Michael Patterson was the most entertaining.
No, dude, no. But don't forget, some highlights of the chat log were in the initial segment, and I this is what caught my attention to Lorne. And I'm not just saying this. I immediately, as soon as I watched To Catch a Predator, he was the one person that stood out for me because no one else seemed to go on this. You could tell just from that segment, in my opinion, that he did fucking think he loved this girl. I wish I could marry you right now because I would do it. I was like, hang on a minute, this guy actually is proposing to a 13-year-old on the fucking internet. I was like, dumb. I was like, is this real? I was like, man, I couldn't believe people like that who were in the late 30s actually existed. That they were so... And he is unique because if you look at all of the other chat logs, even though you've got people like McFetridge who, say I love you, it's all a ploy. And I know you might say that about Lorne, but I do believe there's a part of Lorne that just falls in love with any girl. Is his version of love, which isn't real love. He falls... It's like you said, Tiffany, Lorne's... Basically, if someone doesn't immediately run in the other direction, they want to marry him, don't they? That's his...
Absolutely.
So that's what drew my attention to it. And when you're saying if we didn't have this and if we didn't have that, we couldn't not have the chat log and we couldn't not have the phone calls because it is inherent to who Lorne is. It's him as an overall package. So... you couldn't have him without the chat log. It's like, well, why did Base Sham make all them videos? Why did Crank Cinema make all them videos? And Nathaniel Trevor.
That helped it along.
Yeah, it was because, and it was, I remember when I first found out what YouTube actually was. I mean, I obviously don't know when in the timeline, but I used to write in the search, Lorne Armstrong, and it used to come up with Base Sham and Nathaniel Trevor. And these videos, I was like, wow, other people are as obsessed as me. This is fucking great. And then I got hold of the chat log. Reading that chat log for the first time was on par with, well, a lot of other stuff, but I won't go into. Yeah. So it was just like, wow, this is amazing. Like, what is this? I was reading it on the way to Egypt on the fucking aeroplane. On the second time I ever went to Egypt to do diving in the Red Sea, which was a great holiday, and I was reading the fucking whole pornography, all in the airport, in Manchester Airport, and all the fucking way there on the plane. Because it was on my phone as a PDF.
Oh my gosh. Well, I do want to point this out too. Codfisher brought up a great point and said that the decoy calls separated him too. No other predators burst out into song.
That's
true. Mm-hmm.
That's another element.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lorne had a little of everything from every predator too, and his own original stuff. The dogs and the Miss Kayla Marie, those are all original. But and the jealousy, but he shared the same attributes as the other one. He just added as the other ones, but he just added a little bit more to it. He put his own spin on things. And the thing is, it gave us a look into an actual predator's life closer than anyone else.
Yes, I agree with that. That's an important factor of it, isn't it?
Well, I'm not talking about the phone calls and the catfish. I'm talking about the original material. 407 pages. I'm not quantifying. I'm not saying that
it's a full diary. It's a diary of a full month of a predator, and a full diary because he divulged everything he was doing with his job, his sexual sort of innuendos, or what was going on in his mind, his past with his family.
We saw his delusions. We saw, the idea that I think I'm never going to buy a bed because it's more comfortable. That kind of stuff. We get the fact that he doesn't have a bed. Now he's actually spinning it as, my poverty's okay because actually I'm more comfortable. It's weird the way he spins all of that stuff.
Well, and also, don't forget the classic, isn't going to be better now that I quit my job.
I was just thinking that.
There was a recent phone call. There was a recent Raptor came out with one of his voicemails where he was telling, I don't know who it was, Winnie or maybe you, Debbie, that to get on the plane and don't worry about first class. You don't need first class. Coach is fine. He said it like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's essentially what he would be doing if you were there. We don't need to go out to a fancy restaurant. Burger King is fine, and he tries to gaslight you into believing that if you care more about that, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Money is money is the evil here. You come to a simple life with me in this disgusting trailer. But that's how. But the way his attitude is about these facts that are so glaringly weird and funny, I guess. It's just how he spins it.
What's funny is that he takes a lot of offense if somebody criticizes his trailer or the way he lives, and then he'll criticize them for caring too much about money. You're
Definitely.
a money girl.
Yeah.
The way he talks like he's a young 20-year-old man, like, oh, things are kind of shitty now, but things are going to be better in the future. I'm going to make tons of money. I can make your bank account look like shit if I get the right jobs.
Yeah.
He's got like these plans for the future, like things are going to be better. But he's 50 years old.
Yeah,
and no real plan to make that happen.
I don't think he would know what to do with it. I said this before in a comment. He's like a dog chasing a car that finally catches one. He doesn't know what to do with it. I think he's much more comfortable with these relationships on the phone, remote things. And the reason why I say that, and again, Andrew, I'm sorry to bring it back to the phone calls, but there were many occasions where the catfish was on the verge of arriving there. You got the that airport phone call with Tiffany running around, and somehow he didn't make it. But his reaction was totally surprising to me, and it's consistent with what I believe now, in that he wasn't upset. He wasn't as distraught as he would in other stupid, smaller situations. But here he was on the verge of having the person coming right there to validate everything, and when they couldn't come, it was just like maybe he was just worn out, but it wasn't that. I didn't get that grand, this sucks, any kind of rage or anything like that, which leads me to
because he knows.
Yeah,
yes.
I think so. Well, there's one of two reasons. Number one, he knows it's bullshit, and number two, he wouldn't have felt comfortable if she did come. And that's the consolation. And maybe he had the foresight to see that.
Could you imagine his weird, awkward, giddy, squeaky self if a woman actually showed up? And how self-conscious he would be.
Do you know what? I almost feel like
of a woman.
I almost feel like we should club together. I mean, this is running the risk of being a hypocrite. I mean, I'd never do this, but paying a woman, not like a prostitute or something, but like an actress, to go on a date with him, put a hidden camera. Because it wouldn't take much to fool him, would it? And just see how he actually react to, like an attractive woman who is an actress.
Well, you got to pay for the date too.
Yeah, so
that is so dangerous too, though. You can't do that.
Oh no, of course. I'm just saying that it'd be interesting to know how we would. I mean, what I'd be willing to dress up as a woman.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, I'm ugly. You wouldn't go for that. But
go ahead, go for it, guys.
Yeah.
I think he would be so confused and we had no idea. So if you think he's awkward now, you know, when he's seeing Casey in that's the closest time he came to actually, you know, having a one-on-one face-to-face. And he didn't seem very, you know, as I'm describing now, if a catfish came. But I think now he would. I think he knows he doesn't have resources. He doesn't have things that would normally, especially when the catfish are telling him, I'm going to the Greek islands or I'm going to, you know, whatever. You know, he can't compete with that. And he knows that. And so what he's thinking is, if I get her here, she'll get to know me and realize that all that other stuff is worthless.
Oh, definitely.
You know?
That, and he can be physical when she's there. He can physically touch her and hold her and grab her, and maybe make her stay. I mean, I don't think he would hurt, you know, assault a woman and like tie her up.
I don't think he would make a move. This is similar to Casey. I mean, he asked for a kiss 3 times.
3 times, I think. Well, that also, he was a lot younger back then, and he had more interaction with people back then. Yeah. He had been going out to bars more. He was living in a city in Nashville rather than in Cornville, Maine, where I'm sure he doesn't see a lot of neighbors or you know, a lot of interaction other than with the Jenny from Walmart or whatever. So I think you're right. He probably would be really, really awkward and self-conscious and scared.
Yeah, I think he would be terrified. So that's another reason, again, Andrew, that he needs this.
Well, like I said, it's very interesting. We'll go into that next time. Do you know what the thing is about this as well? It's, for me, one of the many, many aspects, and we've not even really touched upon the comedy kind of part of it, because I like to think I've got a good sense of humour, and is that I'm a quite a very inquisitive person. Me, I like to know as much as I can about most things. You know, I'm always buying more books that I can actually read, because I'm in the bookstore. It's like, oh, I bought a book today about the mind of a fucking octopus. You know what I mean? It's like, I need to know, and it's like I feel we're all trying to figure out why.
Are you serious? You got it?
Yeah. There's this guy who's like he's a scuba diver and a philosopher, and he studies like consciousness of animals. And there's one he's done about octopuses, Other Minds, I think it's called.
Oh, can I? My daughter just told me last night that she learned that sometimes octopuses just will punch fish when they swim by just because they're pissed off.
They're bullies.
Out of spite.
I will tell you when I finish the book, but there is a great, just to divert, there is a fantastic documentary on Netflix called My Octopus Teacher, which is fucking amazing. Everybody needs to watch that. But they reckon they're as close. Some theories out there that fucking octopuses aren't even from this planet. They're that different than us. Like they're amazing creatures, but. I feel when we're trying to figure it, because what we and me myself are always trying to do is figure out, why is Lorne so fucking stupid? Why is Lorne's behaviour so strange and out there? Why does the situations and his delusions, why are his delusions so fucking out there? Like, he believed he was going to get 80 million off NBC. He you know, the stuff that he writes in that lawsuit are of the stuff that a comedy writer couldn't have come up with. It's so fucking out there, and it's ridiculousness. You know, female powers, and I got busted on my birthday, all this kind of stuff. It's like, I feel like there's a theory out there about why he's like he is that we've not quite grasped yet. We've not quite figured it out. I feel like Einstein trying to figure out the unified field theory, not to compare myself to Einstein, obviously, but, you know, like Einstein was trying to put together the entire theory of the universe and explain it all. Here it is. But I feel like there's something there that we haven't quite figured out, because it's like, is he a sociopath? Is he a psychopath? Is he got some kind of genetic problem in his brain? Is he deeply depressed? Has he been severely abused as a kid? What is it? It's like this something that we're chasing to try and figure it out. Is it one specific thing? Is it? You see, I think Lorne is just like a perfect storm of bizarre occurrences that have made this bizarre creature.
You're going to have to diagnose him without his help, though. He will not.
Well, that's another aspect of the. You've got a guy here who continually fails rape class, despite everything that he's been told. There's a whole fucking community of thousands of people on the internet that are telling him the same thing, and he still won't have it. You know, he's just
unless you have the potential to sleep with him, he will not tell you anything. There's no profession.
Well, it's like he's so wrong about all of it. It's like when he was talking to you, Tiffany, he asked you if you thought he should tell his rape class teacher or care provider, whatever, to stop with any assignments until he's done with you. Like,
right.
Like you're state mandated or something, and he's going to earn credit through his rape class by talking about molesting children with you.
Right.
What would that entail for him to pass, though? You're asking, he would have to admit, number one, that he has a problem, right? But number two, everyone recognizes that that problem is incurable. It just has to be maintained. It has to be monitored. And he would say, I have a problem, but I'm cured. And that's where he loses it. When he doesn't recognize he still has a problem.
No, he doesn't. I think first of all, in order for him to get through the class, he has to answer the questions. And he's not able to do that. The questions that he receives are essay. You know, explain what is it? Why are you here? How did you get here? And it's supposed to read like a movie. It's, you know, explain like what was happening. How did you get to the point where you get arrested? What was the crime? And he is unable to answer those things.
Oh, well, I agree. I think he would admit, again, I don't mean to repeat this, but I think he would admit that back then, he'll tell you all he wants. Yes, I had an attraction for young girls. Yes, I did this. But the problem is that disorder, that problem is always going to be a problem. There's no cure for that. And
absolutely.
So he doesn't want to accept that that's the way he is now.
Right. Well, the other thing that we have to consider, too, is that this is sex offender treatment, not sex predator treatment. So, and, this is just basically like, hey, we need to get you so that you are going to function in society and not be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me a minute.
Well, okay. And so answering those questions and actually getting him to admit what he's done and come up with a safety plan so that it doesn't happen. And those things include not being around kids, living and, things that are mandated. You can't live in certain places. You can't go to parks where kids are congregating, things like that. But also for yourself, what are you going to do? One of the other things that he's required to do is if he is ever somewhere where there is a kid, so maybe he goes to a coworker's home and they have kids there, that coworker, at least one other adult in their presence has to know what his crime is.
Right.
It's not a matter of, I made a mistake or anything like that. They have to know what he did so that those kids are protected. Just like if, God forbid, he was ever in a relationship with a woman who had children, that woman would have to go through class as well so that she could recognize who she's dealing with on
she can make an informed
criminal
decision.
level. Absolutely. Yeah. But also to protect her kids and know what the signs are. That's how he explained it.
Right.
The signs of abuse and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happens what's the rule when he goes into, say, a restaurant and some kids walk in?
Well, I'm not sure about, it's not as if he has to get up and walk out. I don't believe. So there's going to be certain
time or something. Finish up your meal. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There's
He's also not going into restaurants.
No, he isn't.
Well, no,
I
think the rule is that sells more than 50% of alcohol as an establishment. So a bar would most of their sales are alcohol, so he couldn't go in there.
Right.
But if it's a restaurant that has a bar, that's different.
Right.
Well, he can't afford to go there anyway, so.
And then also what, I don't know how to say this, if it's Joketer or Jocketer, 34 said, we're lucky that he's too proud and stupid to pass the
Yes.
And I do agree with that 100%, because if not, he would be out and he would, even though lifetime probation, yes. But there's always a possibility he could take it to court and be like, listen, I've gone through my treatment. I haven't had any, even though he had violated that. But, there could be absolutely something like that that could happen. So
that happens all the time. They get early termination. The probation goes along with it.
Yeah. Right.
And he is dangerous.
But they would never take him
extremely dangerous.
No. I avoid kids. I'm not attracted to kids. I don't want anything to do with kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's all true. Well, him avoiding kids is true. I think he is incredibly scared. But all it would take is for him, if he did get in a relationship, look at the perfect example, his girlfriend and her daughter, the catfish.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All it took, it took a little bit of pushing, but he didn't say no. He engaged with Rhoda.
No. Absolutely. Yeah. And that is the scary thing.
He's not able to exert, he's one of them people that's not able to exert any kind of self-control. He's got no moral obligation to do the right thing at any point. I'm not trying to, there's many, many men like him out there that literally, when it comes to getting laid, even if it is with a minor, they will forgo any kind of moral. I know people in my place of work that literally would cheat on their wife with any attractive girl that came along if they could get away with it. I think, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong about this, I think most men are like that. If it came down, because I've got a decent group of mates, and a lot of them, hopefully not most, but I know a decent proportion of those people would, maybe I've know the wrong people, a decent amount of those people, if in a consequence-free environment, would cheat on the missuses, because and just a minute, it's ingrained within the biology of men to sleep with as many fucking women as possible. It's ingrained in us to, I'm trying to justify it, to impregnate as many women. It used to fucking happen, like when we were back thousands and thousands of years ago, men would just run around and fucking impregnate all the fucking women, and it wasn't seen as being specifically a bad thing. It was like people had many wives, and it's a judgment system that we have invented, that says that we've invented marriage. We say that there's a brilliant, I'm going off a tangent like I always do, there's a film called Her with Joaquin Phoenix in it and Amy Adams. I think it was 2013. I recommend it to everybody. It's fucking brilliant, and it's a lot of it touches upon the sort of computer romance thing, and he falls in love with an operating system, and the operating system at one point says, I'm talking to many people, not just you. Why are you upset about that? It makes me able to love you better. So it was a way of explaining that this value system that we have about not cheating is something that we've invented. Now, obviously with Lorne, it's a bit different, because you're talking about someone who, it's a minor, but to him, he doesn't give a fuck. And unfortunately, there's a lot of men out there like Lorne, which is why there's so many sex predators out there. It's like, look at Jeffrey Epstein. Look at what that guy did. Now, this is a guy who... this is a guy that had everything. That is obviously intelligent, obviously resourceful, just got everything. And one of the biggest deviants you could possibly imagine. He just unbelievable. I mean, I take it you're all... I mean, you can't really compare Lorne to Jeffrey Epstein, but the same sort of principles are at work there, if you get what I mean.
Sure. I mean, going after young, beautiful, 18, 19, 20-year-old girls for men of a certain age, I think it's weird and immoral for a 50-year-old man to date an 18-year-old girl, just because she's legally an adult doesn't mean mentally, but that's my personal opinion. And that's one thing. And Jeffrey Epstein, for example, could have had his pick of young 19-year-old models, but he wanted the younger, illegally young girls. And he's he was a very sick motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, biology explains a lot of it, or explains some of it, but like you said, it's a deviant attraction to children. I think
we all agree that Lorne isn't. I don't think that he is specifically attracted to children. I think he just doesn't discriminate. I think he's just desperate for anything.
I don't know. I don't know.
I used to think that, but it's the things in the chat log, like the hair. Have you got any hair down there, and the obsession with her coming to age, and the. Is that just another element of his? I don't know.
Well, no, I that kind of tells me that there may be a little group of people he talks to, shares that kind of stuff too. But more importantly, I think that that the children are the only people who would talk to him. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what drove him into that. And then, of course, he has the experience with God knows what he was telling Molly or what he was asking her, and just carry that over to Kayla. So I don't think he was specifically targeting children, but they were the only people who would talk to him.
I think that he was specifically targeting them. Mm-hmm. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have sent any messages to any of them. He would have said, "Oh, she's 13. Never mind."
Right. Absolutely. I
said she would discriminate. There's a difference. I mean, I think he did a shotgun to every woman in that room.
Hold on, Shin. He wasn't messaging, 70-year-old women.
Well,
so I think he does discriminate.
We don't know, but I think he's just desperate. I don't know.
I think it could depend on what he happened to be masturbating to at the time, as far as who he was targeting, because he reached out to other decoys who were the same age with the same lines.
That's a good point. It's easier to sleep with him.
I don't even want to say what I think he was masturbating to. He and look at his reaction when he found out Kayla was 13. There was no hesitation.
The voice in the phone call as well. When he heard a voice for the first time.
You're just a young one, huh?
Yeah.
It was excited. It was 13. That's younger than 15, which is what I'm used to.
That could be because it was like, oh, there's somebody I can manipulate. I'm not saying that this is the case, but it could be, oh, you're 13. That means you're easy to manipulate, and I can get the better of you. Rather than, oh, you're a young one. I'd much prefer to have sex with you. I'm not saying that that's the case, but that could be it. It doesn't necessarily mean.
I think it's part of both. Go back to his conversations with Debbie. Because you tried, Tiffany, you said, tell me what turned you on about Kayla. Tell me exactly what it was. And he said, and we don't know how much of this was his sincere thoughts, or what if he was just saying what he thought you wanted to hear, or we don't really know. But what he did say was, the thought of having sex with an underage girl who was a virgin is what turned him on. She was untouched. He could teach her. He would be her first sexual experience. And he
maybe I'm repeatedly,
repeatedly that he was excited by the thought of being gentle with her.
Yeah. That was disgusting.
And he talked several times. He would keep bringing those things up. That's why he brought up the hair a couple of times. Her small boobs. The fact that she was so cute. And all that kind of stuff is really celebrating how young she is.
Can I just make a point about that? And the with men, a lot of men, and myself included, do have occasional fantasies of a submissive girl. Not young ones, but the idea of a girl who's like, will do anything that you want. There isn't a man that doesn't think about that. Not, I mean, like a slave, but because there's certain things that we like and that we don't like. So if you would meet a beautiful girl who would just like, like the scene in Coming to America that's highly amusing, we even joked about it the other day, didn't we? Is the royal penis clean? And stuff like that. It's like, Eddie Murphy was so kind of turned off because she'd do everything that she wanted. But there is an element of men that does find the submissive girl appealing, because a sexual kind of some of the sexual proclivities that men have is, if not most, is about power and control. That's not necessarily in everybody, but it's a huge.
Well, what does this have to do with a 13-year-old girl?
Because they're the ultimate submissive person, isn't it? In Lorne's opinion, in Lorne's world.
Yeah,
not
but
necessarily.
There's another feature. To have somebody who's inexperienced, he doesn't have to compete with anybody in her past.
I think that was part of it.
But what I mean is, I'm not the word. The attraction to children, is he attracted to children because he thinks he can get her to do anything he wants, rather than actually be? Because I think we can agree that McFetridge is specifically someone. I'm using him as an example. Is specifically interested in very specific sexual elements of children. He is a proper, what I would consider a paedophile.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that if Lorne was not, if he was just thinking about the fact that he could have this girl who was inexperienced and could get to do, the very first things with her, he would be talking not about the physical parts of her that he liked, that she was a young girl, was not through puberty, was just starting to develop. He wouldn't be turned on by that.
Mm-hmm.
Picking up the phone and having a little girl go, "Hi." What is that? And he was so happy. So I don't. Right. I mean, there was nothing, and I even asking him the question, how did it not turn you off? How is that possible? Even if however your mind brought you to a place where, you were so horned up that you're talking to this girl and you're doing something that you never imagined that you could, but then you get her on the phone and there's a little baby on the other line and you have the fucking nerve to say, "Are you anxious to touch my penis?"
Right, Tiffany. It wasn't just that he was
exactly.
You sound so sweet. You are so pretty. You're so there. He was sexually talking to this baby-voiced person, talking about her. What are you going to have in your bag? What are you going to have in your bag?
So does that? What does that say about his? Because I wasn't coming up with any conclusions. It was just, is that one element of it, that this girl who would do anything that he wanted, and it's the ultimate power and control. What they say is that every single sexual crime is somehow related to power and control over another person. So with Lorne,
I think his dogs are the only thing he can control. I think that's what attracts him to them. He doesn't give a shit about him. Doesn't care for them, but he's able to exert control.
People's sexual proclivities are going nuts because of the internet anyway. It's like, if you look at, I believe the most popular form of porn now is pretend. I don't want to say that. I don't even like saying that word in that context. But it's the woman pretending that they don't want it. It's like pretend abuse, and it's sickening. I do not understand that. If guys are into that and the girl wants to play that role and they're not doing any harm, that's great. People can crack on. From a personal point of view, I do not understand it. It's not, in my opinion, and this is open to interpretation and perception, there's a difference between sex and making love. It's making love that is something that's actually meaningful, and there's no power or control at that point. But yet, some girls like to be put in that position. Women in an adult relationship. But yeah, I suppose
when they're with someone that they trust and
of course,
love,
exactly. Yeah, they play roles or whatever. It's fine. Mm-hmm. It's the human sexuality is an incredibly complex and constantly evolving situation, and it can be a spiritual thing. It can also just be something that people suck the light out of, no pun intended. People use so much and for means of merely passing the time that it becomes a meaningless endeavor. It's just like anything. A drink can be enjoyable unless you abuse it too much. It's a very complicated subject, and I think it's one of the elements why Lorne specifically is interesting, because he embodies all of this. And what I was saying about, I'm not come to any conclusion, Tiffany, about like, oh, this is the reason why, because he's got
no, because there isn't going to be just one, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I just think that because I don't see him, and I think we can agree he's not got the proclivities that someone like McFetridge has. We don't believe him.
I'd like to piggyback off that point, and it's something that Erota just actually mentioned. One of the reasons why I think he's attracted to children is not just necessarily they don't have the experience sexually or anything like that, but take, for example, his bed scenario in his chat log. If he was talking to an adult woman and he said, you know what, I'm thinking about getting in bed, the floor is just as comfortable, that wouldn't go over. But he could gaslight a little girl to believe that. And there are many other things in his life that are so deficient that he could paint it in that direction too. And it would only work on somebody like a child, not an adult.
Or somebody, there are women like Lorne who are stunted, developmentally or mentally or whatever, just like Lorne. There are women who are trashy like Lorne. There are women who, wouldn't have a totally negative reaction to him saying, isn't it going to be better now that I quit my job? There are,
really?
Yeah.
No, but he doesn't think that's amusing, though.
Desperate. Well, maybe.
Well, they wouldn't take it as, oh, good, we're going to have time together. They were just like, oh, okay.
I think it's a good point what Erdo brings up about people not wanting to make fun of him, but you must understand that things he comes out with, he doesn't think they're amusing. He comes out with a video talking about mac and cheese for the excuse for his behaviour. He doesn't see things like we do.
He's dead serious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, it might be one element of it, but you've got to. This is the sort of some of the errors that we make sometimes in evaluating Lorne is that, and it's not any fault of ours. We can only see the world from our own perspective. Lorne's view of the world is so skewed, and that's one of the elements which make him so fascinating. It's like you read that fucking lawsuit, and you're like, who fucking came up with this? It's like you cannot believe that someone who hasn't been diagnosed as insane could actually have written that.
I think we're underestimating his actual sexual attraction to very young girls.
Maybe.
I agree.
That picture of her, the sexy little thing in the pool. What was sexy about that little thing in the pool? She's a child. She's a 6th grader.
But does he believe that though? Does he? Is it not
Why
just
would he
it?
say it
But
if
what
he
I mean
didn't
is,
believe
it's
it?
just a female. He's coming out with flattery that he doesn't necessarily believe. Like, I'm not saying that he did it, that he didn't, and he just doesn't find her. That he, but with regard to the chat log, it's disgusting, and some of the things he says, I remember reading some of it and feeling sick, but there's a fucking lot worse out there. McFetridge's blows Lawns out of the water for shock value, literally, in my opinion. So
we're evil.
Yeah, in my opinion, that like I said, I'm not saying I've got the total authority on that on the but that's my perspective of it. I'm not saying, Amanda, that he isn't, but it is more than possible that Lorne just tells these girls what he thinks they want to hear. Any female that doesn't run away, he will lay on the fucking charm, won't he, or pretend charm.
I think Tiffany, I think it's different with Kayla. He did say certain things that he thought that she might want to hear, but he, like Tiffany said, he was in the wild. That was Lorne unfiltered. He said everything he wanted to say without really much consideration for how she would feel about it, because she was 13 and so submissive and easily moldable. She had very little personality of her own, so I don't think he was really afraid.
Yeah, but he also, I think he was also very cognizant of the fact that throwing out things like, you're beautiful, you're the most beautiful thing, you're a goddess, I love your eyes, and whatever the fuck else he said, I think he truly believed that he needed to do that.
Well, those are kind of generic things, but look at things like hopefully you guys are familiar with this because it's kind of vague in my mind, but there's one part of the chat log when he's talking about her pictures, and he's talking about a specific one because he can see, he likes that one because he can see more cleavage or something. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? What did he say? He said something, I can see your boobs, I can see your cleavage.
He calls it a little girl, but it was a blouse or something. Right.
There's nothing. She's a very young girl in a training bra, and only a really sick motherfucker would.
Who did he say that about? Was that about Kayla? I don't remember
that. Kayla, yeah.
Oh, right, I don't remember that bit.
Well, it kind of tells you something that he is really staring at these pictures, doing stuff. You know?
Of course he is.
Yeah. And why would he be doing that if he wasn't genuinely attracted to what?
Think about what he was doing when he was talking to MySpace.
I don't even want to think about it, but I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as...
Well, Kayla was a lot easier work for him.
And Kayla, some of the Kayla pictures as well, she doesn't even look like... Because you get some teenagers that are starting to develop and they have, like, you know, bigger boobs or whatever, they could resemble an adult if they were dressed a certain way. Kayla still looked like a child.
That's my whole point.
She wasn't...
So was the voice on the phone. I think they wanted to really illustrate that point.
Of course.
He stared at those pictures. The picture of her in the pool is a child. You can't, no matter how you flip that picture, you're not going to see anything womanly. She is a 6th grade child.
In a kiddie pool, too, I might add.
In a kiddie pool, yeah.
But I also...
attracted to that.
I believe it's possible... Like I said, I'm not come to a conclusion that he doesn't see a child, he just sees a female, and everything over the age of 10, potentially, is a female that is a viable target.
Well, that's
disturbing.
That's a problem.
Yeah, of course it is.
Most people see children. Well, it's a real, because when most people see young children, they don't see male or female, they see child.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So... For him to distinguish, it's just a female. It doesn't matter the age. It is a female. It has female body parts, so I'm attracted to it. That's a big fucking problem.
But I think that could happen with someone who doesn't necessarily have this genetic condition where they're attracted to children. I think what can happen, and I've seen it happen, is where you get a guy who's so desperate, who's never had sex, who maybe masturbates every day to porn because he can't get laid. He thinks he can't get laid. He's tried everything, and he's so desperate that literally he's bubbling, and that any female will be like, it's like a true predator. He's going after he's like a starving lion that will pick off anything, literally anything.
To what you just said though, any female, wouldn't it be easier to go to a bar and find some very drunk?
But does he not see the easiest? It's like what we're saying about why do some of them, that even the drunk girl in the bar is still an adult with judgments. A young girl like Kayla is somebody. That's what's so interesting, and it's probably a good thing that Kayla was so didn't have a personality, because Lorne was allowed to run free. He's running wild. Is that what he finds? She is somebody that will not question what I'm doing, that I can manipulate. Her mind is malleable, so I can make her do and think things and like things. He's trying to... Is that why he always wants to know what she's thinking?
But as far as easier goes, he has to go through all these precautions, these hoops to make sure he's not caught, because she's a little girl and it's highly illegal.
I don't think he's even...
got to wait for her parents to not be home.
Oh, that, yeah. I mean, to fulfill his plans, but not to do his talk.
He's got to break up on MySpace. He's got to...
But he can do it all online, though. He can do it online, though, Mandy. Could he do what he was doing with Kayla, a MySpace girl, to an adult woman online? I don't think he could.
No, and I would agree with that if he kept it online, but he didn't.
Right.
He went...
Yeah, because it starts online. That's how he makes the first move. So what you're talking about, let's go to the drunk girl in the bar scenario, because it's a brilliant sort of comparison to bring up. Would Lorne be able to pull a woman in that scenario?
To take a drunk girl home?
Yeah.
Well, he had 30 days and 30 nights when he was in Nashville, right? We could assume he went to the karaoke bar every night. He claims he did.
You guys have never seen that girl at the bar who's so blackout drunk and all her friends are like watching over her because the first guy that comes her way, she's going to go in the parking lot with him.
She's actually sat next to me right now, actually.
You brought her home.
And typically the girl who is unattended, who's she may not be attractive enough for Lorne anyway. I agree he would be.
I might agree with that, Shin, but the whole there's a certain character that was developed specifically to see if he had any standards, and he didn't. But I mean, you could argue by that time he was already involved. So I don't know if he would go for a woman that he thought was physically below his standards. Maybe not. We've never seen that scenario, so you could be right.
Amanda, you brought up the point, so I'd like you to see if you can what you think. Do you think that Lorne has got the ability, and think about this carefully because it's kind of a difficult thing to picture in your mind, also quite comical actually when you do start to imagine it. Even Lorne, after a couple of beers, let's just say there's a really desperate drunk girl at the bar who would fuck anyone. No. Would Lorne be able to pull that girl and sleep with her? Would he have the balls to do it?
No. Well, maybe not, but there are women who go to the bar specifically to get drunk and go home with somebody. They do exist, and they're not.
Yeah, but somebody with something to offer. Somebody, at least, a bed. I can't. I don't see. I don't. I know they don't know.
They'll do it in the parking lot behind a dumpster.
That's true.
Classy people. I mean, because there are women like that who would see a kind of bashful, goofy, unintimidating man like Lorne.
He would bore them to death in 5 minutes.
Well, they're blackout drunk. They're amusing themselves.
I suppose what I'm trying to say is everything that we know about Lorne and his lack of charm and whatever. I mean, not that you need charm much in that scenario, thankfully for me, is that would he have the balls to go up there? Would he be able to successfully get that person in a position, and would he be able to actually do the deed?
Well, ask the first question first. Would he have the balls to approach a woman? Would he have the balls? That's the first question.
No, he wouldn't have the balls to do it. Yep. And when he's lied and he's made up the stories about his one night stands that he was having, the common denominator with all of them, not only did they not happen, but he was always the one getting approached.
Yeah, they made the first move. Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
and
possible.
That is the one thing that would make sense. It makes sense to me that he's not going to be the one that's going to make the approach, because
absolutely not.
He's going to have to face the rejection that could very likely happen.
I agree. So in my scenario, it would have to be a very drunk, desperate woman who that's her objective for the night, that she is going to go home with someone.
Well, the thing is, and also to go along with that, though, is that he would have to be the only guy in the bar.
Right.
And there would also have to be that type of girl in the bar. That type of girl is not going to be there all the time.
True.
Right. Yeah, those girls are very rare, trust me.
Yeah, and not only that, like it says, they're taken care of by their friends and things like that. And there are other guys that he would have to compete with and whatnot. But I think the way it might start, I mean, if it was possible, say Lorne went up to the bar and got himself some, whatever beer, and he's waiting for the bartender to pour it, and the woman just makes one comment to him. It could be about anything. That would be it. He'd find his movement. So they would have to say something to him first, I think.
Well, I think that not only just one pickup line to open the door, but I think they would actually have to pursue him.
Right. Well, we know.
You guys don't think that any women were drawn in by his karaoke singing?
No, absolutely not.
Well, he did say an old couple,
no, kidding.
right?
Oh yeah, the old couple, and also the producer that gave him his card, which was actually directions to the van that Lorne was gonna have to blow him in.
But it's not necessarily he probably was bad. It probably wasn't a situation where they were like, "Let's look at this guy. This guy's terrible." Quite frankly, he's got a decent karaoke voice.
He does.
So can I just go back to the point that Amanda was making? So when you believed that, because you're of the sort of opinion that Lorne's specifically attracted to children and he targets them, I was making a suggestion that part of it, if not maybe all of it, more than we believe, is that it's purely based on desperation and him and the ease of what he believes is the easiest target, hence being a predator. So do we now believe that, do we all agree that him going in a bar scenario is out of his reality? It doesn't exist in something that he could actually do. Because you got to understand that if a guy thinks a certain way and he has such a lack of confidence, that scenario that we've just talked about there, that doesn't exist for Lorne. He doesn't think, I know, I'll go to a bar tonight and pull a girl. Because I find that prospect very difficult. Even if I wanted to get laid tonight, it's a very difficult scenario, and it's not a pleasant one either to do pickup.
Okay, then if he doesn't have the confidence to approach a woman in person, which I agree, that's probably unlikely, he does have the confidence online because the fear of rejection isn't as powerful. So they
don't really know
all
me.
The women.
See me. Yeah, he can justify it in many ways. Yeah,
but then you've got to ask yourself.
He has the confidence. Well, my question is, isn't it? You're talking about what's easier. It's easier to get a kid than an adult woman.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more hoops you have to jump through to molest a child.
There is, but you've got to understand, I don't believe that Lorne thinks he could have actually done that with an adult woman. So the reason he goes after the children is because he believes he can manipulate them sufficiently to get what he wants. Whereas with an adult woman, he can't do that because they're more socially aware, they're more judgmental, they have standards. A girl who is 13 doesn't know what the fuck she is doing. She's susceptible to people like Lorne, which is why they go after people like Kayla. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
I do, but if he wasn't specifically attracted to kids, then he wouldn't. If I'll use you, Andrew, as an example. If you were very lonely and desperate, you haven't had sex in a long time, you really want a girlfriend, but you feel like shit about yourself, all that stuff combined. If you look at a child, you're not going to see a potential partner.
But I can't put myself into that mindset. There has been times when I've been really down on my confidence and feeling really shit about myself. It's never been that bad where I've ever considered or been attracted to that. But what if I felt so bad about myself and I was so fucking horny or whatever that was the only option? Now, luckily for me, I've got a lot of mental discipline and I've had many advantages that Lorne hasn't. I also think that Lorne is I don't think there's a way of saying this without sounding big-headed, but he's kind of a low development level compared to a lot of people, including myself, where he just doesn't seem to have just kind of a lower cognitive ability. So that comes into effect as well. It's like
I just don't think you can be desperate enough to want to have sex with a kid. I mean, what you're saying is
it's either there or it's not. It's what it comes
right. Exactly.
It's never an option. Like Jim Rouse saying, I don't even like 13-year-olds. That's different from saying, are you kidding me? A 13-year-old? Oh, exactly. I don't even like it. It's like it's on his list of potential mates. I mean, no, it's not there.
What you're saying, Andrew, is that he would have to lower his standards down so low because he felt so low about himself that he would be interested in a kid, and it's just not there. If you have to lower your standards that much, then you find a
lower quality woman
with a whole
exactly. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no kids involved. It doesn't compute.
Oh, by the way, guys, I have decided where to use my time token.
Oh, this is interesting. Go on.
Yes. Now, I think everybody has already done that. I'm the only one who hasn't. Tiffany, to recap, you were going to use it at the karaoke bar?
I think I wanted to use it at karaoke. Yeah.
Okay. And Amanda?
Let me think. I kind
of. You have an answer? If you don't, that's fine.
I got an answer. I would want to use it at when Lorne is talking to his probation officer.
Oh, yes, that would be
telling her about his relationship with the actress who helped get him arrested. I think that would be. Yes. I want to see that conversation.
Yes. How about the day of the arrest of the surrender? That would have been great. Oh my God, Andrew, I think you took 2 opportunities, didn't you? You actually took 2 coins, or was that Tiffany? I can't remember.
I think I had a few, but mine's very predictable. It had been just the first time he was talking to Kayla on his computer.
Well, I thought of one. I want to be in the motel room with him and Tony at the fair. That's where I want to be.
That's a great one.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I'm going to stick with that one now.
That's a really interesting scenario. That should we just briefly explain that for anybody that doesn't know what that is?
Well, Tiffany got the story out. She would be best. So.
So Lorne was talking to his MySpace girlfriend, and we call her a girlfriend because that's what he considered her to be. And he decided to meet her in real life. And there's a lot of speculation as to how that came about and everything. There's some theories out there, but ultimately he drove to her town. There was supposed to be a fair, and he was going to take the opportunity to see her at the fair. They were going to look at each other. They weren't going to meet because he didn't consider that to be a meeting, but they were just going to see each other to see that each other was real. Now, I don't know why he needed that, because they had seen each other on webcam on multiple occasions. They had spoken to each other.
Right?
They exposed themselves. So I don't know what was, what that was going to do, considering there was supposedly, according to him, there was nothing else planned. And they weren't even going to acknowledge each other. That's where the fair came into play, because it wouldn't be so out of place for him to be there and for her to be there, and it's not, nobody's going to notice anything. So, so they drove up there. It was quite a few hours away, and they ended up getting a hotel, and he was with Tony. Tony was there as sort of like an alibi wingman, and they ended up never getting together. The fair ended up not happening on the same day that it was supposed to be. And it was supposed to be starting the very next day, but he said that he needed to go to work, so he couldn't stay another night. They ended up not being able to make other arrangements, and so he drove home. Mm-hmm. That's the story.
Now I'm wondering if Tony... I was talking to somebody. Was it you, Tiffany? I was talking to somebody recently, and they said that they thought Tony might, that's just bullshit. Tony never even went, and it was just Lorne by himself. And I would have that.
I just, as I was talking about that, I was just thinking maybe Tony never went.
Yeah, because why? Remember his reason for bringing
would he
Tony
say that,
was.
though?
Well,
to
make it look more.
He got a hotel room. He got a motel room for himself.
Right, absolutely, Shin. How sinister would it look if he said, I drove up there by myself to see a 15-year-old girl and I got a motel room?
Right.
Then immediately Debbie would be like, you what? So if he said, oh, it was with Tony, and Tony came along, because I listened to that call recently, Tiffany, and he said, and I brought someone with me, but it's not important who I brought. I brought someone so nobody could say I did nothing if I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? He said it was Tony.
Theory.
He always includes Tony in every story because he has no other friends. So Tony is his go-to person, whether it happened or not.
Well, I think there's a possibility it could have, but for one reason only. After Lorne was arrested, apparently MySpace girl had called Tony.
Yeah.
And so there was some connection.
There was an awareness there.
Again, I believe that. But I think that could make it plausible that Tony was there. Just the fact that somehow MySpace and Tony had some kind of a phone relationship anyway.
It's so weird, though.
Yeah, but we're dealing with weird people, Amanda. And if you think about it, I believe from what we know about Tony, God bless his soul, he's potentially the kind of guy that would jump on an opportunity like that. I just want to make a point, just very quickly, that Michael Mendoza in the chat, his ticket is just to explain what this is. It's a time traveling ticket that we can quantum leap into a certain period in Lorne's life in a consequence free environment where we can observe and just watch. And he said, how about Lorne getting the Amanda James talk from his sister?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fucking brilliant one.
It's so confusing to me. How did she know? How could she talk to her
because
for 30
she's not
seconds?
a fucking complete moron, Amanda.
I like Reborn, where how about when Lorne had to explain to his mother what happened? But I think he was in prison then, Reborn. I don't think that
he was.
Oh, I can guess what he said to his mom, and it's probably pretty accurate. I think we could all guess.
Oh yeah,
I was vulnerable. I didn't do nothing. They tricked me. I'm sure, I wonder if he lied at first and said he didn't even know how old she was. I bet he did.
Speaking of which, do we have a theory, or do we have a grasp on how old MySpace Girl was? Because the reason why I'm asking that is originally, Tiffany, he told you she was 16, and then you drove him down to 15. So that makes me believe that, I
don't think he ever said 16,
we're not
did he?
settled on the truth there,
Well, you may be getting confused with Melissa, who was another girl that he talked about at the same time. But with MySpace, he did indicate that she was a freshman because she was going to a new school, was feeling a little insecure about being there, obviously, because you can imagine going from middle school to high school. There's going to be, some feelings there. You're going to be with a whole new group of people. So he did indicate that. I think he said 15, but it just it's sort of like when anybody will say, well, she's almost 17. She's almost this. They will jump up the age of 1 year just to make it not sound as bad.
Yeah, you got him down to 15, but he wouldn't. But, I mean, you tried. You're like, if she wasn't 15, you can tell me. He's like, no, I weren't going to say she weren't 15 or whatever the fuck he said. I said she was 15. But you know what I just thought of? I'm thinking of a time when Ramona confronted him about talking to the other decoys. Mm-hmm. And he said, I never talked to any other underage girls. Yeah. I talked to one girl who was 18. He was
adamant about it. Yeah.
But he was very adamant about it. But he said, I talked to one girl who was 18 and she showed the whole world her body on the internet. Yeah. Did we ever hear any more about that girl?
It could have been Molly.
Oh.
He could have been talking about her, but just was saying that she was 18.
About the time frame that he was in Kentucky or Nashville.
They were talking when she was in Nashville. Allegedly, because she was supposed to go down there and see him, and they were going to see at that time if anything was going to happen.
That makes sense because Lorne did say that the time that she flashed him, that she was doing
for someone else.
Yeah,
you're right.
And I think that's a true story. That I don't think he'd have made that up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
But then again, Lorne doesn't really grasp the idea of what makes him look bad. He doesn't seem to do that. The thing about the whole explanation of the Molly thing as being justified because we had feelings for each other. He thinks it's just going to go unchallenged. He has no idea that makes him look even worse.
Yeah.
Well, in his mind, it's so much worse to just, want to molest a kid without loving them at the same time.
Right. He justifies his anger, justifies his rages, justifies his pedophilia, because they can love too.
Do you know what's funny? We're talking about this first scenario when we're talking about whether he's, how deeply rooted his attraction to children is, and it's kind of like I've got to ask the question: why do we care so much? It's kind of a point of the whole point of this stream is like, why does this one guy's behaviours, like, why are we intrigued by it so much?
Well, I think it's unimaginable to normal people. How could you? So it makes more sense to us because I thought for a time too that he was just an opportunist. He wasn't necessarily going after little kids' age. It made more sense that he was just desperate, and this girl happened to be there, and he felt. Because look how quickly he fell in love with her. So that made sense to me too. But when you look at everything that's happened, I think it's really likely that he does have an attraction to girls that age, and that's hard for anyone who isn't attracted to kids to even begin to try to understand.
Well, there's also the photograph as well, to add weight to your belief. The photograph that he accidentally kind of divulged, just in case anybody didn't know, we did do a full stream on this. Lorne admitted that he was in possession of an actual child pornography photograph.
I keep forgetting about that.
That he said, which we know is fucking bullshit, so he was obviously lying about it, so there was a bit of an issue there. He believes he was sent it by perverted justice, which we know is bullshit.
Yeah. Oh my God, can you imagine? They blow their whole, they'd be looking at charges.
It's just a ludicrous, it's actually a bit ridiculous that he'd be that stupid to come up with that as an actual excuse, as a legitimate sort of defence. Is that why would an organisation, not that you need me to spell this out, but why would this group who have already got him banged to rights send him a photograph to make him more guilty?
Well, don't fall.
I think,
sorry.
I think because Lorne's going to be looking at the entire situation and say, okay, well, that was around this time that I started talking to Kayla, and they've been looking at me for a long time. They were targeting me. They threw Kayla in my direction.
That's right,
they basically had her. So I think that he was
adding to his conspiracy theory, wasn't he?
Yes.
He came right out and said that they had to put that girl right under my nose.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That's so
ridiculous shit is that to say? They knew I was vulnerable.
Right.
So they had to put that girl right there and keep her talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that's bullshit. Okay, we don't even begin to honor that.
Did you ever say the age of that the person in the photograph?
But Tiffany got a description of the child.
Yeah, I don't want a description. I'm like.
Well, I know. I mean, blonde hair, nothing, graphic or anything like that. But that is an example of what I'm talking about. When he says he got something, like, again, that came out of the blue. There was no evidence that he did that, and Tiffany got that out of him. And then he took advantage of, again, looking at the whole situation and blamed it on perverted justice. And that is another example of what I'm talking about, when, he has no idea how much he's making himself look worse. Mm-hmm. And so what that does is, we know that perverted justice didn't do it, so we're not going to even honor that, even consider that. So it opens up questions about, okay, how many of us have ever gotten child porn sent to us accidentally? Zero. I never saw anyone. So he's talking to people who are into that shit.
Absolutely. Yes, he is. Yeah.
And the question is, do we know who that is? I mean, my guess is it could have been his cousin, it could have been Tony, it could have been anybody.
But
I think it probably.
The reason I asked the age or approximate age is because I imagine there's different communities of people who are interested in, like, 4-year-olds versus 13-year-olds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one's a pedophile, I guess. One's a pedophile.
Right. So I guess that's what I'm wondering. Did he get an image of a middle schooler or of a toddler?
He did. Well, he didn't say that it was a toddler or anything like that. He said that it was definitely somebody underage. He didn't make reference to any kind of a specific age or anything like that. But he did know what color her hair was. And that was the reason why that was asked, was basically like, You know, was this just a picture where like, oh my God, and you just delete it? You know, but he knew that picture and he could tell you exactly what was happening. So it wasn't just.
What kind of person would not, I don't know, report the picture to the if like you said, nobody just gets stuff like that sent to them on accident, but if you did, what would you do? I would call the police immediately.
Flag it, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I don't know though. I could imagine if I got the sent that, I'd just shit myself and probably not call the authorities in case they might think I had it deliberately. So I could see that side.
I think maybe if I was a man, I would feel differently, because I think there is an inherent, you know, there's a difference between men and women.
But dancing around the obvious, we know that he asked for that photo or was conversing with people that had that. Is it not possible? Because I'm trying to throw all possible theories out there, because what I don't want to do is say, yes, he definitely was after child porn, and there's a possibility that he wasn't, because I'm not interested in bullshit. Is it possible that, well, I can't think of any other scenario really. He could have been talking to other people in there. But why would he be you wouldn't be talking to other men in there about grooming kids, would you? You just wouldn't, because you don't want anybody to know what you're up to. You're not just going to go say to some guy to say, I don't know, fucking hold me closer. So listen, dude, are you after them kids as well? Have you got a decent?
Yeah, but how did it happen then? Was it then, Tiffany, or was it when he was before he went to Nashville? He got that stuff. Oh, it was then.
It was when he was there. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it wouldn't have been perverted justice. So he must.
Right.
I can't think of any scenario where he could have been sent that accidentally by anybody, and the fact that he lied about how he got it means that he's covering something up. If he's covering something up, that must mean that he got it in a way that was not that he asked for it. It must be.
From what I understand, in the Yahoo world, they had their chat rooms that were the locations, just like the Tennessee, Kentucky, and all of that. But then there were also chat rooms that the users created, and they could be pretty much anything. So the titles would be whatever that person created. And those were where you would find the really perverted things.
Yeah, but
like
only
the young girls.
Only guys, right? I mean, it wouldn't be someplace where would consider it to be hunting.
Well, they would still be monitored, though, wouldn't they?
Monitored by who? Yahoo police?
No, but what I mean is someone would have been able to see him. So what I'm trying to say is, if there was a group there where Lorne was like getting tips off other child predators, he would be too scared to talk to people about that, wouldn't he? All I'm trying to do is see if there's any possibility that he could have actually. Well, no, I can't think of any scenario.
Use your common sense. I mean, no. I mean, he had to have some relationship with this person.
So, Tiffany, what you're saying is, back in Yahoo world, people just made chat rooms and they could just name them whatever they want.
They could name them whatever they want, yeah.
Like Lonely Horny Man's chat room or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and if he was in a place like that, I mean, think about that, where he could have.
Well, the cops would have found that, I think. I mean, I would imagine.
Well, but we're talking about 2007.
Yeah.
We're talking about 2020, and they may not have been really that interested. They could have looked at his computer, you know, but they're not. Like, for example, Dustin had how many DVDs, folders, all kinds of shit. If Lorne had very limited amounts of perhaps this one photo, and it wasn't anywhere that was obvious, they may not have been interested, considering everything else that they had.
I just find it remarkable that he even offered that story.
Absolutely. But then also, he's not looking at himself as somebody who did anything wrong. He's looking at perverted justice sent this to me. Can you believe that? The sick fucks.
Yeah, and also make himself look good by saying, I'm not interested in this stuff.
I deleted it. Yeah, it made me sick. Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So are we saying that potentially it was all a lie and he never got it? He just said it to make them look like twats?
No, I think he did have it.
No,
is that not a possibility?
Anything's a possibility, but I don't believe that that would be.
Okay. I mean,
I really believe that he did have it.
I mean, I
that's
suppose
like saying I killed a man and I didn't.
Yeah,
I don't.
the reason I thought that was important is because what we were going into detail about whether we, like I said, whether we believe that he really has a deep-seated, rooted, specific attraction to children, rather than the opportunist, and if he had got this image through his own means, which must have been the case if he had it, then that adds weight to your theory, Amanda, that he does have a specific attraction, because why on earth would you have that? But saying that, though, it's a complicated subject, I think. I don't think that... I'm open to both possibilities, really. I can see a cause for both arguments.
Well, I don't think he's attracted to children as, like, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds.
No.
He's attracted to young, just kind of on the verge of puberty, or maybe just.
But I think that
puberty.
Fetridge was as well. And have you read much about have you seen much of his chat log, Amanda?
No, but I know the highlights, and I know that he wanted the decoy's little sister to participate, who was much younger, right? Maybe like 10 or something. I can't remember, but she was certainly a child and not like a young teenager.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what I'm doing here is pointless. There's no point trying to score the predators off each other. I suppose I'm just saying that obviously Lorne's is a unique case, is a unique person in not very good ways, but I do find it interesting because it's been talked about a lot about like his attraction to these. Is he an out and out pedo? He obviously would. He obviously has some level of attraction to them. That's without doubt.
Let's call him a predator. We can definitely agree on that.
Well, that
definitely
goes without saying, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, we kind of done a bit of a detour there, but it does. Why have we spent hours theorizing about his attractions? Why do we care? Because.
Well, I will say that, in my opinion, and we've spoken about this, I think even very early on, maybe in the first stream that we did, in talking about, who's worse than who, and there's worse people out there than Lorne. And I think what's really important is that I don't care if somebody has one victim versus 100. I don't care if somebody completes an act of physical violence versus somebody smiling at you and telling you that you like it and they're going to be gentle. Those things to me are completely irrelevant. Lorne is just as bad as Dr. Nasser. Lorne is just as bad as a sadist who hurts, completes the violent act as well. You have to look at a situation because I think what ends up happening is we end up taking away, and we when we're categorizing these guys and saying, well, this guy, he's not an actual pedophile. He's more of an opportunist and he's not interested in this and that. We are also categorizing the pain of a victim, and we're saying this one is worse than that. And we can't do that.
I don't think we are, though, or at least I'm not when I'm talking about that. That's not what.
Right, but I don't think it's intentional. But that is the reason why I see it as all of the same. I look at it as a blanket. You are a sexual offender. You are a predator. You have hurt people in the most personal way possible. I don't give a shit who you are. I don't care what the details of the crime are. Now, we can look at the crimes, and I know that, when they go to court and they're in sentencing, and sometimes, I've listened to some sentencing where they do kind of like a scoring. They look at aggravating and mitigating circumstances to determine what guideline they're going to follow. But for me, when I'm looking at it from a societal standpoint and from a personal view, the person who, did have somebody who manipulated them into a situation, maybe they were drugged and they, their person was a friend or a family member and was, telling them that they like it. Don't tell anybody. It's okay. You're going to feel really good. Going to that person and saying, you should be happy that you weren't beaten up while it happened. Or the person who did get beaten up while it happened, well, maybe you didn't know the person who did it, so you should be happy. Like, I don't like categorizing this kind of stuff, because then what you're doing is you could then be taking away from somebody who has been absolutely devastated and their life is never the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that doing so is intentional. I don't think that, you're looking at things, from that way, but that's just the perspective that I see it. And that's my TED Talk for today.
So it doesn't matter.
No, I see things a little differently. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying that, like I said, I'm not saying that that I'm, of course, right. But, so for instance, let's just say that you have, because we've kind of agreed that Lorne didn't fully grasp the gravity is what he was trying to do. Do you agree with that?
A stupid look on his face said it all.
Well, I would put it this way. He didn't think that he was abusing anyone, because in his simple mind, he sees abuse as like a violent act, or an act that's unwanted. So as long as she said yes, then he saw it as something loving and not victimizing her. And even during your talks with him, Tiffany, I don't think he fully believed it or grasped it. Even when he was parroting what you said about, oh, it would affect her and her husband and her children if she ever could even have a relationship.
Reciting it,
he's just talking shit. Yeah, he's just talking shit. He didn't want to hurt that girl. He didn't want to physically hurt her and put bruises on her. So therefore he doesn't see it as abuse. But he knew that under our society's rules, you don't touch children. And that's all that is needed.
Of course. And I agree. It's not saying that he isn't dangerous at all.
Yeah.
No, I know. But I mean, the question was, did he...
He carves out exceptions to the society's rule, and that is they have mutual feelings for each other, and that is justifying everything.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't really matter if he thought that if he realized the impact that it would have or the harm. It doesn't matter, because he knows the rule. Yeah. Whether he believes it or not, whether he thinks it's harmful or not, society has judged that it is.
No, I agree, and as I've always said, my perspective may vary from others, but there's one thing that I don't think anybody here would disagree with, and that's that, and it's something that we don't get right in the justice system in England, is that victims are not put first. For some reason, when these people are sentenced, they always take into account, it's never about the victim, it should be all about them, and ultimately, whatever protects innocent people from harm against these people should be done, whether it means fucking castrating them, whether it means stoning them to death, it doesn't really matter to me. I do believe once innocent people are protected, then we have to look at it as deep as possible, because these people, unfortunately, are not going away. So, do we find who they are and shoot them all? Each person has to make a decision on whether they think that is a way society should be run, and whether that's a viable solution. With regard to the different sort of putting them into different categories, it is very complicated. It's what you're saying about Lorne knew what he was doing is wrong. He's a very dangerous individual. He doesn't. People like him who are not aware that they're being abusive potentially could be more dangerous than anybody, because they're not aware of the harm that they're inflicting on people, and they cause the most damage. Lorne doesn't see himself as a dangerous individual when he is, and it's all about not having that introspection. If you don't have introspection and you can't evaluate your own actions, you are a bad person. Good people take responsibility and make efforts to change when they identify something in them that isn't good.
I think you'd find a lot of the guys who were caught in the sting felt the same way. They didn't think they were hurting these girls. They didn't want to hurt anybody. They had a mutual, consensual relationship. I'm thinking of John Dupuy. he was another one who was in love. He wanted to, and he almost even said during interrogation that he was hoping, he cut himself off, but I think what he was going to say was that he was hoping for a long-term, meaningful relationship. Dustin McFetridge said the same thing. You know, I wouldn't have had sex with her unless, you know, I thought it could be a meaningful relationship.
Jim Ralph said too.
Yeah, right. They're children, and that's the part that they're not realizing or understanding. So I think a lot of these guys didn't set out to hurt anybody. They wanted a girlfriend who happened to be 13 because that's what they're attracted to. But it doesn't matter.
On your point about what you know, how he parrots back with whatever you know, Tiffany says, you know, about what would happen when this girl grows up, and he comes out and parrots it. I think the worst part of that is when he tries to say, I should know because I was a victim and I was, you know, the same kind of thing, you know, where that drives me crazy when I hear that, you know, oh, I should have known better because I remember how I felt, you know. I mean, that is.
I don't think he compared the two at all. No, I don't think there's any comparison in his mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even talking about whether he had sexual abuse or not, but the fact is that, you know, he adds his own little personal note to it, and you know, there was no, whether it happened or not, it didn't really affect him in any way until he realized that he could use it.
Well, whether or not it happened, he, in that scenario, he would see himself as the victim, whereas he didn't see the girls as victims. They were his girlfriends. The MySpace girl is a perfect example. He didn't victimize anybody. He dated her. How could he victimize somebody he didn't hurt? You know, that's his way of thinking.
What a prototypical creep, man. I mean, internet predator creep.
But it kind of brings the whole conversation around to the beginning, because in the beginning, Andrew, you asked, what is the point that somebody does something where they're no longer treated like a human? And I don't see anybody being treated like they're less than human. Physical harm is not acceptable, you know, but ridicule and ostracization and judgment are just natural consequences of the crime.
No, I understand.
There are certain crimes.
I would run the risk of going into, because I'm itching to talk about it, and we've all got an opinion about it, and it's very. You're exactly right. It's then we start running the risk of saying, right, okay, so physical harm isn't acceptable, but mental harm is. So that's the way I look at it, because it was said at the time when the ethics debate went on years ago, which I was on holiday at the time, so Adam kind of stepped in, and the first Mrs. R, who's great, was in there, and she was comparing it. She might have angered a few people with the way she worded it, but she said, you know, it was like mental torture what he was being subjected to, being, you know, having all these characters pop up that were designed to wind him up, and it's a fascinating. Do you know what I like about it? The Lorne saga is a microcosm of such bigger element. It's got a bit of everything. You've got, like, you know, we can discuss the morals of it, of how do we treat these people. Then we're talking just earlier about classifications of these predators. Do they all deserve to be pigeonholed? Is there exceptions? Are they specifically targeting children, or are they desperate? You know, what do we do with them? You know, how do we treat these people? There's people in the chat, and it's understandable that some of them are saying, you know, let's shoot them. You can completely get it. These people harm children. They fucking harm children. It's almost unthinkable that people put their own needs in front of caring for the youngest in our species. Now, it's not exclusive to the human race. It happens in the animal kingdom, but aren't we supposed to be better than that? You know, it's like
that's the part. Yeah,
it is remarkable that these people. It is. I mean, especially the younger. It's, you know, I know that a child is a child, but the younger you go, the harder it is to imagine, because you just, you know, when Kayla's talking about school and fucking homework and the parents and mummy. One of the most difficult bits to me was when she said, "Daddy likes to spoil me." That's something that a child says. And then he responds and goes, "Oh, he's wise to spoil you." It's like, you fucking piece of shit. You really, it makes the blood boil, doesn't it?
Like that. Exactly.
I guess that's why it's good that the victim or the family of the victim doesn't get to decide the crime, in our justice system. Because if somebody hurt my children or children that I personally knew and loved, then I would say that physical harm is completely justified and acceptable and encouraged.
Of course. And I think that any parent in that position, there'd probably be something wrong if they didn't feel that way at that moment. Right. There's nothing that... There's nothing that someone mentioned it in the chat before. What we were talking about why is the Lorne saga so interesting is that, as well as the systematic kind of abuse that he was going to subject Kayla to, he also scammed an old couple as well. It's like, God, what is this guy? The things that wind people up more than anything are cruelty to like older people and cruelty to younger people. It's people that are vulnerable, that can't defend themselves. Yeah, and this guy just runs around and how could you not it's like I have my views, but maybe they would change dramatically if it happened to somebody very close to me, and maybe I'm able to make an objective opinion at this point, but it's this is why Lorne will never get a break, because there will always be someone out there that will relentlessly go after people like Lorne. And that's another reason.
Sorry.
So I was just going to say, that's another reason why I can't understand why these guys put themselves in this position. Why would you risk being labelled? It's like when I did that Lee Greer video the other day. It's really, really funny, but why would you do that? I don't understand. Like, why anybody?
It's irredeemable.
It is irredeemable. It's like even if I can't fathom it at all.
It's not all dark. Well, I mean, if we were listening to phone calls with Ted Bundy, I mean, Lorne is different in the sense that it's funny. He's goofy and stupid and gullible, and it's highly entertaining to just listen to the stupid stuff he says. So it's not all dark. And even exactly. the really disturbing parts when he's talking during the chat log or the phone calls when he was talking to Kayla and saying such inappropriate things to a child, the way he said them, you couldn't help but just laugh in combination of shock and disgust and humor. Who says that? Who says Mr. Penis? Who does that? It's hilarious because obviously Kayla wasn't a real child. If she was, then we wouldn't be laughing. But there's something more than Lorne's crime that draws me to listen to him. And it's just, he's a very interesting person, and the way he phrases things is so stupid and weird.
And he wants to allow you to get into his life, to know him. And he wants to share everything with him, from social security numbers to PIN numbers to whatever. He wants you to be, he's inviting you in. And, obviously it's the catfish he has a particular, relationship with at the time. But, again, it goes back to my theory. He knows in the back of his mind what's going on. But,
just looking at the way he lived.
He's just so generous. That's the best way I could put it.
I think one of the interesting things about him too is that I have never known somebody in my life yet. Hopefully there's not going to be anybody else, but somebody who fucks up as much as Lorne. Every single area of his life is a complete fuck up. And not only that, but he thinks that he's smarter than the system. He thinks he's one step ahead. I can't tell you, and I'm sure that I've explained this before too, but that day when he got arrested I mean, I could have ran around my office and kissed everybody because, I mean, it was like the most unbelievable moment because up until that time, you know, Lorne had been getting away with drinking constantly, getting driving, all of the shit that he was doing, thinking that he was going to get away with it. Not only that, but he called the cops on his brother, got him arrested for DUI. And then, I don't know if it was that night or the night after, is drunk as hell, getting in his car, driving home, saying, "You better not call the cops on me."
I thought it was that very same night.
It absolutely could have been the very same night. But I think, you know, it's like every single thing he does is just so stupid. And you're like, you know, Lorne, you have your mother who's telling you that you're stupid. You have your other family members. You have Tony and Wendy who are trolling the shit out of you. You have your probation officer. You have the counselor. Everybody is trying to set you straight and just trying to get you to cut your shit out. And he will not do it. You know, so up until that point, and then he gets arrested and you're like, finally, it's happening.
I want to know about
that he's been doing.
Did you have an inkling that he was on his way in to get arrested?
No, it was just another meeting with Maria. Oh, gotta go see Maria because he had failed his lie detector test about drinking. Yeah,
right.
And
it happened 3 times before, though, right? So
absolutely. So all that he had to do was go in and sign a modification, and it was fascinating to me that when it first, like, we were trying to first, like, decipher what happens when you go see probation and you violate. What happens? Because they can obviously get you arrested. You can go to jail right there. But he would say, "Oh, I just have to go sign a paper."
And he doesn't remember.
And it would be like, okay, well, what is that paper? Are you just acknowledging it's like an attendance slip? Are you like, "Oh yeah, I was here to see Maria today. Fantastic." And he wasn't explaining that these were modifications to his probation. It's like getting another citation. It's like, in lieu of arresting you right now, we're going to have you sign this and you're going to agree to cut your bullshit and you're going to act right now because we're not fucking around. And if you violate this, and it's in black and white, his signature is right underneath it. And I will never forget, I had heard somebody at work talking one time, and it was to a customer who had signed a contract. And like contracts, you know, people like to try to get out of them. So the person was calling and this guy was like, "Well, I understand you're angry at yourself for signing this, but, you know, basically, fuck you, we were going to hold you to this." And it was like, and that's how it is with Lorne. It's like, there's a whole page that explains, if you do not follow the terms, you're at risk of going back to jail. It's going to happen. Do you understand?
Every time he has a modification, he has to go to the judge. The judge has to sign off on it. So there's a chance that judge can say, you know what? No. Bring this guy in here.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
I'm not sure if I'm going to go along with this. He had no idea that risk was always there.
Lorne hears what he wants to hear.
He does. And I can almost guarantee you that just like with anything that's going to be really important like this, they're going to say, "Hey, Lorne, you know, here's the deal here. You're fucking up and we know that you are. You're going to go back to jail." Because he would talk about the threats that he would get. He would get threatened of going back to jail.
Right.
So there's no doubt in my mind that they were telling him this as well. And he would sign it anyway and be like, "Okay, well, I can go through this couple of minutes of pain, but I'm walking out of here a free man today." And that's what he was thinking he was going to do on that fantastic day when that didn't happen. It was like, I mean, you know, let's have a parade. I mean,
didn't he sing you a song first?
Right, and then just for anybody that doesn't know, he ended up getting arrested then, didn't he?
He went.
Which person used the token for the probation arrest? I'm beginning to agree with you now. Was that you, Tiffany?
No, that wasn't me. I want the totally stupid one of just watching him sing.
Karaoke?
I want them all.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a bit of a get out clause in mind, right? There'd have to be a subsection written that if Lorne ever sung "I Loved Her First" in a karaoke bar in Nashville, that's what I'd use my time token on.
That's a bonus.
Bonus. Yeah,
I bet he did.
I think he did too.
But he was so
and
oblivious.
sung it in Kayla's honour. Can you imagine if he got up there on karaoke, went, "This is for a very special lady. She can't be here tonight. This is for Kayla. Look at the two of you."
No, Tiffany, I'm thinking of when he was meeting with his probation officer and they're signing these modifications and all these times he fucked up. When he would talk about it afterwards, he would cry. "Oh, I'm so upset.
I signed a contract."
Same Tony.
Yeah.
He said that his probation officer or counselor, whoever, would tell him that they were proud of him for being honest.
Yeah.
Once he got caught and didn't try to lie to the end.
Yeah.
So therefore he was honest and they would thank him for it, which can't be true.
I don't think it was true.
It was understandable that he wanted somebody to drink with. That I understand, but you have to learn. They made it sound like they were.
Or that it was Tony's fault. It was Tony and Wendy's fault, and they agreed that he just needed to stay away from Tony and Wendy and stop going to their house because they allowed him to show up at their house uninvited with a case of beer and drink it. And he made a list for why he should stay away from Tony and Wendy's. Not a list of why I should not drink, no matter where it is or who it's with. It's why I should stay away from these two people who caused me to do something that apparently I don't want to do, which that's just the story of his life, right?
Trying to get out of it.
So I'm going to
It's always somebody else's fault.
I'm going to steal Shin's token, and I'm going to use another one.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to go...
You can only have one, Yeah.
No, if she can overpower Shin, she can take his.
That's right.
Only if it's better than what I've already used. I'm using it for then. Okay, we'll agree on that.
Okay, well, I'll explain it then. So, in one of the letters that he submitted to the court, it had to do with trying to get another attorney, and he was explaining how he went to see Maria and Bryce, who I call Daddy Bryce because he's the guy who just hates Lorne. And Lorne hates him too. He hates him too. And what I loved so much about this one moment was that Lorne was giving them a sob story about his childhood, how he used to be, how, I'm sure it's a whole story we've all heard 500 times. And Bryce said, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Said, well, I weren't trying to sell anything.
That's right. And I would have loved that moment to see Lorne's face just like, well.
You don't know what's in my head. You don't know what I'm
thinking. I'm imagining the shock, that just literally taken aback. Like,
exactly.
I'm crying.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
What didn't Bryce buy? The
whole story.
Okay.
Any excuse, any reason.
Yes, exactly.
And that's all what it comes down to. And that's what I'm sure that's what he said. I'm not buying it. I don't give a shit.
Because he mentioned it later in some,
Oh yeah, for sure. Of course that's going to bother him. Of course.
That's probably part of the reason why he prefers to have female handlers, because the men are just like, fuck you, Lorne, shut up. I'm not buying it. But whereas women will let him write a list about why he should stay away from Tony and Wendy's house rather than just say, look, asshole, just stop drinking.
Yeah.
That's part of your terms. You can't drink.
Oh, man, I would love if you were his probation officer.
I don't know if I could do it. That seems like a pretty thankless job.
Yeah.
People lie to you all the time.
All the time, yeah.
We've been talking for nearly 2.5 hours now, and I don't think we've even touched on so many elements of what make the Lorne saga so interesting. We've kind of divulged into other areas and gone off, which is what we always do, which is actually within itself reason why this is so interesting. But the chat log you know, some of the elements that's in there, like like what other predator would come out with something like Mr. Penis and Mrs. Vagina? It doesn't. It's just crazy. Like you know, the like you said, the things that happen in a phone call, the song, the strange coincidences that happen. It was a 30-day chat log. You've got the lawsuits, the whinging about getting, you know, complaining about getting done on his birthday, and you know, the bizarre relationship that he has with his mother, and the consistent catfishing, and his bizarre.
Oh, Andrew, I got to stop you there. I have to ask a question to Tiffany and Amanda, actually, Tiffany especially. If you had demanded that he make a choice between his mother, or you, what would he have done?
I think he would have picked his mother.
And just let you go?
Okay, so we have to consider a couple of things.
Sorry, Andrew, you just raised it.
Am I?
Oh, just drop me for the women. It's fine, Shin.
Am I there with him face to face, or is it still over the phone?
No, it's you know, his normal relationship phone.
Normal over the phone. He would.
Well, he does that to you. He tells you to lose your fathers and everything else, right?
Well, yeah, but that's definitely. I mean, Mom is a saint. She's like Sandra D. from Greece. She's perfect. So yeah, he would stick to his mother, but I think that he wouldn't necessarily just go away. he's not going to go away. I think he would.
Flat dead ultimatum. I will change my number. I will block you. You will never see me again. He's not able to reach you. And
I think he would pick his mother.
Think still? Okay.
Not because of love. But I think because if I'm not there face to face, there's still the question mark that I might not be. And his mom is already there, obviously. And he thinks that his mom has this special, not love for him, but obligation, I think is more important. And those things for him are tied together. And so I don't think it's just, I think that if I was there.
Can we clarify? Can we clarify what do you mean pick between, like, I will not speak to you anymore, or you have to completely cut your mother out?
Yeah, like whatever the same demands that he puts on the catfish with their fathers. I know it's a different situation, but you know, the same estrangement. And he even did it with Kayla.
Well, I think that there were moments during some calls that a couple of people have said, "Fuck your mother," to him.
Right.
And I mean, that would be like the ultimate insult, and he would get mad, of course.
I think he chooses the catfish over his mom often. There's a time when he was talking to his mom, and she said about you, Debbie. He said, "Oh, I got this friend in Florida, and she straightened my ass out." And she's like, "Yeah, you don't ask her for fucking money. You ask me for money."
No, that is true. So then it would bring up an interesting question. Would he really ever drop his mother? Yeah. I think he would play both sides, right?
Me too. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He would say, "No, I'm choosing my mom." Yeah. But his actions would choose the catfish.
Okay. You know? Let's say that Paul had the lighthouse. Okay. And he had the job, and probation agreed to everything. So Lorne would have to move out of Maine. And at that point, you say, "Never look back, Lorne." Would he do it?
He would go, but he'd still call Mom.
Oh, okay.
When he needed some money.
I don't know. I'm just trying to question the. Again, it's out of necessity that he has this relationship with his mother. I agree with that, and like Heisberg says, you know, he needs the money, you know, from her.
He chooses the catfish over his mom a lot. And like you said, when they say "fuck your mother," there was certain girlfriends who would call his mom a gorilla face.
A gorilla, yes, every other opportunity.
And it really pissed him off. But not enough to cut ties with her and tell her, "Listen, you're really disrespectful to my mother, and I've asked you not to be, and you continue to do it, so I don't want anything to do with you anymore." He'll never do that.
Play both ends then. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. That's not going to change. But if you actually ask him to make a choice, I think he'd throw his mother under the bus in a second.
No, he'll say
that's
mom.
interesting.
He would say that he chooses mom, but like you said, Tiffany, he would play both. He would play both sides, and he's not going anywhere.
Maybe he would do that, and then when he realized he couldn't reach Tiffany anymore because she came through with her promise, this is what's going to happen, this is the consequence. He would reach out to somebody else and say, make sure you get a hold of Tiffany and let her know that I'm going to give her to my mother. I think he'd do it for a while. Once he realized that Tiffany was serious when she said that, you'll never hear from me again. But again,
what would be interesting if a woman was there and she said, Lorne, I freaking hate your mother. She's an asshole. I don't want her coming to the trailer anymore. And every time Lorne went to visit mom, she gave him a real attitude and would be, mean and mad about it. I think he would definitely stop going to see his mother as much. He probably wouldn't cut her out completely, but he would, because his mother is this saint to him, and she is obligated to help him and take care of him.
That's right.
But ultimately, he wants a mommy that he can have sex with. So if he has a woman, a wife, a girlfriend living with him in his trailer, it's now her job to be his mom and wake him up for work. And
he would trade up. Definitely. He would definitely trade up.
Make his pot pie. Yeah, I think he would.
Yeah.
And another example too. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And I was thinking, remember when he was in jail? And I believe that mom was at least an hour away.
Yep.
Drove there with $60 for Lorne, and he spent all that in one day talking to a catfish. And he
not his mom.
Funny.
Not his mom. And that money was supposed to be for
catfish. Yeah. You need to send me more money because I couldn't even call mom. I spent all my money talking to you. And she said, well, why did you do that?
Right. And then she proceeded to start singing while he was running out of time. So yeah. I mean, so absolutely he did pick. And then also having her go to his court appearance and have some pathetic letter that he had to probably give examples of why. How is it that a mom can't come up with things that make you proud about your son? Some nice things about his character through all the years that you've known him.
Well, when you have a son like him with
exactly, Lorne, he hasn't done anything.
Hey, listen, you're being very unkind.
Mom's not a liar.
She said it in her own words. My son is a very good son. Them are her own words.
You know what she said?
Oh, yeah, I bet they were.
She said, I have to drive 20 miles a day to feed his fucking dogs.
Yep.
And my sister has been paying his land payment. And I've been paying the rest of his bills. That's what she had to say.
And it's really an inconvenience.
Never has the term wasted been more appropriate.
The sooner he gets home, the happier we'll be. That's
right. Not because we love him so much, and he's
no,
because we're paying all his bills and cleaning up after him.
I can only imagine his mother and him sitting at the table, drafting that letter, and Lorne having to remind her, "Remember when I did this, Mom? Yeah, that was like the thing about the
freezer.
You want a contest or something."
You guys, he wept after hearing her say that. Like, she got up there and spilled her heart out about how proud she is of her son and what an amazing man he's grown up to be. All she said was, I'm so sick of taking care of this motherfucker. Can you let him out so I don't have to do it anymore? I'm like 100 years old. Can we stop now? And he cried.
How would she know about the the bottle charity thing, the water bottle thing?
Well, because Lorne told her.
You would witness.
Because he bragged about it.
Yeah.
He bragged about what a good boy he is.
Right, we're gonna have to wrap it up, guys. We've been going for 2.5 hours, so we've treated people at Christmas to an even longer stream because I usually have to go early for work. But
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you and everybody. But I don't. We have kind of covered a lot, but not. We haven't really come up with an answer, have we? Ironically, it's not got anywhere.
We have.
I think it's kind of simple. It's just hard to explain to people who haven't witnessed it.
Yeah,
but it's pretty
we're all
simple
talking
to
between
explain.
ourselves.
He's stupid and funny. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's stupid. He's gullible. It's funny to see someone so so unusually stupid.
The best reality show, and I have always hated reality shows.
Yeah, I think he's like a cartoon character. He's like an unlikable Homer Simpson, but in the real world, he's like got a sort of two-dimensional character, hasn't he? He's like such. There's just nothing there, is there? There's no sophistication. There's no thoughts. There's no substance. He's just kind of this reactionary, bashful creature that runs around and it's just mental.
Reactionary. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's generous.
Yeah, it probably was actually. However, I do actually think we've touched upon some interesting subjects. We've actually had a couple of debates as well, which is always good, and got into some quite controversial maybe subjects. You know, because what we're talking about the polarities of this overall situation, when we were talking about, you know, sex offenders and treatment and victims, it stirs up a lot of emotions in people. You know, I'm sure there's some people listening that have been the victims or know people close to them that are only involved in this community because of what they've been through, and it just creates so much. It can bring so much pain to the surface, and it's totally understandable that people like Lorne will never get a break. In some respects, maybe they shouldn't. It is, you know, it is a very contentious issue, and every now and again, you know, I'll say something. Well, it happens virtually every video that I do, and someone will, you know, disagree with me, and even sometimes get a little bit angry, which is understandable. But I do think that. It's good every now and again we do these streams, and sometimes we just laugh, don't we? Because we got to see it's good that we can see the funny side. It's like you said, Amanda, it's because in the chat log there's no real victim there, so we can just take the piss out of it, can't we? But then when we start...
I mean, I think we have a better physical specimen for this, either. I don't know what it is, but everything's perfect. His face, his body, his head, everything.
His home, the way he lived.
It wouldn't work with somebody.
His relationship with his family.
Yeah. Just goofy motherfucker.
Oh, I hope he's not listening. It'll ruin his Christmas, you horrible bastards. And on that note, yeah, thanks for everybody in the chat. I've had quite a few people in today, so Heisenberg, thanks for joining us, dude. William Fetters, hello. Eddie and David Gaffney, and Tiffany Lockhart. Oh, Tiffany's in the chat with us, isn't she? So,
you're welcome.
Hey, Daddy. Kelly Slime Bucket Witch Lady.
And thanks for joining us, Amanda James. You always bring up some interesting points for discussion, which is why we like you joining us. Otherwise, it'd be a bit fucking pointless, wouldn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah, and Shins Koala, who is always my compadre and balances the tables with the girls. So, you know, we have... so
sexual thing.
It's always good. So
there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Right on cue. So, yeah, thanks for joining us, dude. And
thank you.
Yeah, we might be doing next Sunday what we were touching upon here about an hour or so ago. We nearly delved into that fully. We're going to do a discussion about the rights and wrongs of the catfishing and the different elements it touches. I know people have already made their opinions very clear
and
in
we're
the
all
chat.
guilty, by the way. So we're not...
well, me and fucking Shim went to see him in court, and I've enjoyed some of the calls. I can't wash my hands of any moral responsibility. I make videos about the motherfucker every week. You know, I can't. I've got to look upon myself as well, which I always do. But I also have I have opinions about the catfishing, right? From the not just directed at any one person. It's not about any one individual. It's about the overall implications of doing it. So it's not focused at any. To try and go after one person and say, well, it's not. That's not the purpose of it. I'm not interested. But I do believe it's a very interesting subject to cover, so we might do that next week. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining us. I'm gonna have to bail out now because it's nearly midnight here, so I need to get my ass to bed. So thanks for joining us, guys. Merry Christmas to my friends here and my friends in the chat. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll speak to you soon. So take it easy, guys. Bye. We're done.
Andrew, that was actually